Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Halas Hall Hangover. We are 4-star Chicago sports, and we're back together for the first time in a couple of weeks. How you doing, Dustin? We've been missing you, bro.
I'm good. Yeah, you better miss me. What's up?
What's going on, Plank? Welcome back, buddy. Kyle, Brandon, how we doing, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
Not too
Living
bad.
large. So the Chicago Bears looks like they have rounded out their coaching staff. Dan Rochar seems to be the guy that will be our new O-line coach. He has been he spent 10 years with the Saints, man. He worked with Dan Campbell. He's had some top-tier O-lines. Rochar previously worked and coached for Illinois, NIU. He's currently was the O-line coach for Tulane. He had Larry Warford under him, a three-time Pro Bowler, Andres Pete, a three-time Pro Bowler, Max Unger, Pro Bowler, Taron Armstead, a three-time Pro Bowler, one-time All-Pro, Ryan Ramczyk, who he's an interesting story because he came in actually as a three-star recruit, and he worked his way all the way up to a three-time Pro Bowler in the NFL. The Saints team blocking grades under him in 16th, 9th, 17th, 2nd, 18th, 13th, 2019. They got all the way up to 2. In 2020, they were 13th. That was his last year there. His run blocking, he ranked 13th, 11th, 21st, 5th, and 8th. So it does seem as though this guy is a quality hire. One little added tidbit, a center by the name of Vincent Murphy. He actually transferred from Western Kentucky. He was an original South Carolina recruit, but he transferred because he wanted to work exclusively with Dan Rochar. He wound up having the best ninth passing blocking grade in the league in NCAA football, 85.7, a 14th overall grade among centers at 76.3. Just something to look out for as we move forward. And boys, it does look like the staff is complete. We went from Matt Eberflus to Ben Johnson, Waldron to Doyle, Taylor, I guess, from Thomas Brown and Waldron, both passing game coordinators, offense. Wide receivers coach is going to be two guys on this show's favorite, Antoine Randall, the new hire, Eric Bieniemy. Jim Dre, I believe, was here with the previous staff.
Yep.
JT Barrett over Kerry Joseph, Dan Rochar over Chris Morgan, peace, bitch. Dennis Allen over Eric Washington, and John Hope replaced by L. Harris, and obviously Richard Hightower was also retained. Gentlemen, what do you think of this all-star studded cast? Who wants to take it away?
Well, Sean, I can get into these three coaching hires that have happened in the last week here since the last time we've been on here. So Bill Johnson is their defensive line coach for the Chicago Bears. You know, a lot of things people said when the Bears hired Declan Doyle was, I thought Ben Johnson said he was going to lean on experience. He said he was going to hire guys who he could lean on who had been coaching the NFL for a long time. Well, the three hires they made this week, he did it. I mean, Bill Johnson's been a coach in the NFL he has 45 years coaching experience between college and the NFL. He coached Aaron Donald in his two best seasons, one of them being the Defensive Player of the Year season. He's one of the most well-respected coaches in all of college football when it comes to the defensive line. And he was a coach for the Falcons, Saints, and Rams, who were all ranked in the top 10 in sacks and rushing yards allowed at one point during his tenure. Eric Bieniemy was hired as the running backs coach for the Chicago Bears. He comes in with 20 years coaching experience. He played as an NFL running back from 1991 to 1999. He has a coaching experience as running back coach, offensive coordinator, and assistant head coach. Before he left the Chiefs, he was being highly sought after as a head coach in the NFL. He decided to take his talents to college. He's now back in the NFL with the Chicago Bears. He was Adrian Peterson's running back coach from 2006 to 2010. All four of those seasons, Adrian Peterson ran for over 1,000 yards rushing. One of those seasons, he ran for over 1,700 yards rushing, and one of those seasons, he ran for 18 rushing touchdowns.
It's Adrian
After Eric Bieniemy left Minnesota, Adrian Peterson rushed in his remaining 13 years in the NFL. He only rushed over 1,000 yards 4 times. all 4 seasons with Bieniemy, he rushed for over 1,000 yards. 4 times in his last 13 seasons after his parting ways with Eric Bieniemy did he rush over 1,000 yards. Dan Rochar is their new offensive line coach. He has 40 years of coaching experience. He was a coach for the New Orleans Saints. He was there when Drew Brees was there. Drew Brees was one of the least sacked quarterbacks in the NFL, also a quarterback who likes to stand in the pocket for long periods of time. And he also was there when the offensive line was where Alvin Kamara was running behind that offensive line. Alvin Kamara had his 3 best seasons when Dan Rochar was there and was named Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2017 with Dan Rochar as the offensive line coach. So experience is certainly something that matters to Ben Johnson, because between these 3 guys right here, they have over 100 years of coaching experience. So,
For sure.
Dustin, anything you guys want to add on to these new hires?
Well, I mean, just in regards to what you were just saying, I mean, I'm not going to give Eric Bieniemy too much credit for Adrian Peterson running all over people in the prime of his career and then having a drop off, as he got older. But I mean, Bieniemy's a good coach. The reality of the situation is the Bears
his drop off started at 25, Dustin.
When you have a running back that amasses the amount of carries that Adrian Peterson amassed, that's just bound to happen. Again, Eric Bieniemy's a good coach, but I just wouldn't give him credit for Adrian Peterson being Adrian Peterson.
Nobody gets Adrian Peterson gets credit for Adrian, but the whole coaching staff gets credit for putting
Kyle, did you mention Kareem Hunt? I missed it if you did.
No, I mean he had,
Hunt as a rookie had a great season.
He actually, when he was with Kansas City, he had 4 running backs that
Jamal Charles
had their best. They all had their Jamal
Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a great rookie season.
He didn't have Jamal Charles.
No, but the 4 running backs he coached in Kansas City, all 4 of them had one of their best seasons under Eric Bieniemy. All 4 of them.
Bieniemy has shown that he can get the most out of running backs. I'll agree with that. And just in regards to the Bears coaching staff in general, the Bears have put together an all-star cast of coaches. And we see Plank and Bruce in here loving the coaching hires. And that's because these guys got name recognition. Like you said, Kyle, these guys got a ton of experience. It's a good mixture of youth and experience. Ben Johnson is surrounding himself with really smart dudes, really intense dudes. Al Harris is a guy that you're going to love to watch on the sidelines. I love Al Harris, man. So, I mean, like, everything that they've done, each next hire kind of blows you away a little more. I'm feeling super confident in this Bears coaching staff. But at the same time, I just want to point out how confident we were in this Bears coaching staff last year when the moves that they made, this feels different. It does. But we as Bears fans always tend to get over our skis a little bit with what the Bears do in the offseason. I want to see it put together come training camp and what they do, obviously, throughout free agency and the draft to get these coaches players that they can get the most out of. But I'm excited about the staff that they put together. It's a list of big names with a lot of good experience. It's very encouraging.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate the fact that Bieniemy not but 2 years ago was getting interest as a head coach in the NFL.
No, Burn, real quick. The article I read about Eric Bieniemy going to the Bears today said that he did have offers for better positions. They don't name the schools and or NFL teams. They don't say, but could have been offensive coordinator somewhere. Could have been. He wanted to come to Chicago. He took a lesser paid job to come to the Chicago Bears as running backs coach instead of going to be offensive coordinator somewhere else. I think from what the article I read that the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders did have talks with Eric Bieniemy at some point. So I don't know if it was up for offensive coordinator or what, but he was being sought after elsewhere too.
And I want to state the importance of not only age and experience, guys, but I think you have to have a balanced approach when it comes to hiring coaches for former NFL coaches and coaches from the collegiate level, because these coaches become scouts, right? I mean, if you're hiring the running backs coach from UCLA, I'm sure he's got some insight on running backs from college, from this last college season, but also any position that Bieniemy, who played on the team that Bieniemy coached or coached against, right? These guys have had an up close and personal look at a lot of the talent coming out of college. The Bears have 8 draft picks, 3 of them in the first 2 rounds. They're going to, as far as I'm concerned, Poles needs voices in his ear. I don't want Poles making these draft selections between him and Cunningham. I want Ben Johnson to have his hands on this, and I want the coaches that Ben Johnson hired also to have their hands in this too, because you're going to start to build this roster around Caleb Williams, like he said. And that starts with coaching, guys. And I do love Barrett. I love Barrett. It's a name that also hasn't really gotten a whole lot of attention from the Bears. I think that he's a really good, because this guy, I mean, let's be honest, There was a point where he had the Caleb Williams clout. He was the top of the world. He was going to be the next best thing, and he fell flat on his face. And he's probably got a lot of advice for Caleb Williams on how to avoid that.
Guys, real quick in the chat, Plank says it honestly shows just how trusted and respected Ben is already. I agree with that 100%. You see the staff that he's able to put together. It shows that people in the league want to work for this guy, want to be a part of what he's going to do. That's very important. And then Purple Jesus, who is a Vikings fan, just so Plank knows, everybody in the chat knows, Purple Jesus is a Vikings fan that's been joining us.
Purple?
We appreciate him. He said, "Are the two guys on the right twins?" Good Lord. No, they're not. They're not twins, actually, but thank you for asking.
Second cousins, once removed.
That's all I want to get to.
Real quick, Scott Angel, thanks for joining us, man. He says,
I got the chat.
I agree. Plank says a lot about Ben Johnson, and when quality people want to be around him. Yeah. So obviously Ben Johnson is a part of changing the culture for the Chicago Bears here, and you can already start to see the effects.
Too, you guys all talked about you want a leader of men, leader of men, leader of men. It seems like the Bears have about 12 leaders of men on the roster, on the coaching staff now. So
yeah, it's
I think we're in good hands.
It begs the question, guys, if Ryan Poles doesn't land the guy that he wants in Ben Johnson, well, Ben Johnson's also choosing the Bears because he could have gone anywhere he wanted. Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, I think Ryan Poles had to be aware of the fact that this is a draw. I mean, like we just said, Eric Bieniemy wants to coach here because they believe in what the Bears are building, right? You don't come to this team if you have other offers, if you don't believe in what they're doing. And I think Ben Johnson has a huge, huge piece of that, of why this franchise, which we all know up close and personal, as dysfunctional as it is enticing good coaches right now.
What's our grades, guys? Sean, what are we talking about grading? If we're going to grade this out right now, just sight unseen, we just know the hires. How are you feeling in terms A to F on this roster?
Without performance, because we haven't seen any, I'm going a minimum of a B+ here. A minimum. I would consider an A though, and not bat an eye at it. So, what's up, Daniel?
Daniel Jeffries. I've never seen that name before. Is he joining you guys on Wednesday?
He was here on Wednesday. Welcome back, brother. Appreciate it, man.
What's going on, Daniel?
What's up, Daniel?
Hit that like button, everybody.
Yeah, I'm grading it a B+, and the only reason I would even go that low is because we just it's the same thing we've been talking about for you guys. We just don't know anything about Declan Doyle, and that's not to say that he can't be good or he's not going to be good. I think that Ben Johnson sees himself in this guy. I think he got into coaching around the same time as Ben Johnson. He thinks he could be the next great offensive mind in the NFL. I think he's trying to get ahead of the curve, thinking about the future. But overall, I mean, you look at the staff, there's a little bit of everything, right? You have guys who are good players in the NFL. You have guys who have a lot of coaching experience. You have guys who are kind of like Mike Ditka, got that asshole in them, like Antoine Randall Vernon talks about all the time, not afraid to hold people accountable. You got guys who are offensive geniuses, guys who have found success in the NFL, regardless of position. I mean, they just have a little bit of everything here, and certainly more than anything, they have plenty of experience for Ben Johnson to lean on when it matters most.
Hell yeah. That was the most important thing to me is the Dennis Allen hire is the most important hire of all this, because Ben Johnson is not a defensive coach. Obviously, he's an offensive play caller. Leaning on Dennis Allen, who's been a defensive coordinator for Sean Payton, who's been a head coach of his own accord. It didn't go the greatest for him, but he has that experience that Ben Johnson can lean on. That was going to be huge, and they nailed that down. The Declan Doyle thing, it's not so concerning because he's an offensive coordinator in title, not really in his role that he's going to be expected to play, right? So it's like that's the one that you could get away with taking a chance on a young guy and the upside, because Ben Johnson's going to be the one taking care of all the offensive play calling. So not too concerned about that, man. I love Al Harris. I thought he could have been a defensive coordinator for this team last year. I brought it up, to be honest, because I think that guy will be a defensive coordinator in the NFL, and he has the capability. And Antoine Randall L is just a fiery dude that's gonna get the most out of his players and really relate to them. I mean, for me and Rocher and Bill Johnson, I mean, Jesus, these lines are what we needed to impact the most, offensive and defensive line. And that does start with coaching, like Brandon said. So they made two great hires to impact this offensive line and this defensive line. A lot of experience, a lot of great players that have played under both of these coaches. So I got to give this an A right now, guys. The way it's looking to me, it looks like an A to me.
And I'll be honest with you too. I mean, we talked about this a little bit on Wednesday, but Antoine Randall L is coming back home, man. He's from Riverdale, Illinois. He was drafted by the Chicago Cubs. And he also, I mean, rare stat, because I was really into high school basketball when Kevin Garnett was here. And for him to be able to take out Kevin Garnett in the Illinois State basketball championship, it was pretty impressive. But welcome home. I'm glad he's here. It's a quality hire, man. And I mean, he was a Cub. I mean, so
they're all quality hires, man. They really are. And Antoine Randall has that special meaning for sure. And he was a great football player too, and a quarterback in college for Indiana University, right? And
I forgot about that.
Turned into a receiver in the NFL, but they used him in those. It was fun to watch Randall L play. It's been fun to watch him coach in Detroit. I mean, it's exciting the amount of young up and coming guys they put around this coaching staff and the amount of experience that they've added. So I'm going A all the way.
Really quick, I'd like to say welcome to the chat too, Broski Bear. We appreciate you coming out tonight.
Yeah, Broski took the liberty upon himself.
I would give the grade an A too. An A, and I want to say as important as experience is, and it is, experience is also credibility, right? You don't last 45 years coaching if you suck. So I mean, when you're hiring these guys who have this extensive tenure through collegiate and NFL football, it obviously means there's a reason they're still around.
Yeah, and you look at a lot of their track records. I mean, they speak for themselves as well. Multiple-time Pro Bowlers at their positions. I'll tell you this, dude. We all came in last year thinking, is J-Mo Williams a question mark? Can this guy live up to his potential for Detroit? And Antoine Randall got him together, and he made that work because he was a big question mark for that team.
He's still a bonehead. He's still Antoine Randall L pulling him to the side after multiple plays throughout the season where he was making mistakes, but you saw the correction from the conversation, which is encouraging when you bring a guy like that in that makes an impact on the fly during the game. You know, we saw multiple of that.
This guy's been suspended for drugs and betting. I mean, the only thing he hasn't done is the massage therapist thing, right? So like he's a problem. And Randall did a really good job handling him and developing him.
Another reason I give it a B+ and 7A is because, to be honest with you, and I know it's tough to quantify special teams, but I'm not a huge fan of Richard Hightower. I think it took Richard Hightower too long to get the special teams going for the Chicago Bears last season. I don't think he was fired from the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners do not get rid of that's a great organization with great leadership. They don't get rid of good coaches and good players for no reason. I feel like the Richard Hightower thing was kind of like, well, there's not that many special teams coaches available right now. Let's just retain the guy that was here already. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Richard Hightower got out the door at the end of the season, unless he does something miraculous. But besides that, I like every single one of these coaching hires on the staff. I think they're all great coaching hires. Like I said, we don't know much about Declan Doyle, but just like Declan Doyle and the rest of the staff, if you read up on any of these guys that the Bears have hired, any single one of them, JT Barrett, even retaining Jim Dre, I read about him this morning, Eric Bieniemy, all these guys, by all accounts, everybody in the league respects every single one of these guys a lot. And like Brandon said, you don't hang around and keep your job for 40 years, whatever you do, if you're not good at it. So obviously,
anybody they've worked for or worked with has nothing but good things to say.
Yeah, it goes back to Ryan Poles and his character. We hire and we draft a character. They've said it 1,000 times.
That interview that Jared Goff just had, I mean, obviously he spoke really, really highly of Ben Johnson and pretty much gave him the kudos for turning his career around, but he also spoke very highly of JT Barrett. So that's, and you know, as a Buckeye, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks in Buckeye history. It didn't work out for him in the pros, obviously, but the guy's actually got some talent. Off subject really quick, because I know this was something that we talked about before. Another guy from the Sean McVay tree got hired, in that Nick Caley, their tight ends coach, is the new offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans. I wanted to get your guys' opinion on that really quick. I heard he was sought after by a couple of other teams as well, but is this an upgrade from Bobby Slowick?
I don't know, man.
What was his role previously?
He was a tight ends coach for the Rams under Sean McVay. So I don't know. I just saw that because I thought firing Bobby Slowick was a mistake to begin with, but
it was a scapegoat move, Sean. We talked about this. He was a scapegoat. It was it didn't work out. You did their expectations were to get one game better this year, right? They brought in Stephon Diggs. They brought in Daniel Hunter. They thought this team should improve. They didn't. They won one playoff game just like they did last year. Somebody had to suffer the consequences. It just so happened to be Bobby Slowick, who had one of the worst offensive lines of football and lost all three of his receivers at one point throughout the season. So I mean, I don't think it had anything to do with Bobby Slowick. I think the Texans just had a series of unfortunate events, and ultimately somebody had to pay the price, and that had to be Bobby Slowick. Unfortunately, I think Bobby Slowick's gonna be just fine in the NFL. He'll find work.
In Cooper Cup, yes, but not Cooper Cups.
I'm not interested in Cooper Cup, not for the Bears. I don't
If
know.
Cooper
not
Cup
at
comes here as a third
I would
receiver,
imagine Cooper Cup and Keenan Allen have very comparable careers. I would imagine their contracts will be slightly similar.
Cooper Cup has lost so much speed. He gets no separation from these defensive backs. It's a problem. It's not something I want to invest in for the future. He makes sense on like a 1-year prove-it deal for a contending team in my mind.
I personally, I am not completely out because the guy can still get open based on his route running.
Well, you didn't have him on your fantasy football team, Sean.
No, he was drafted too early. Timmy took him in like
You don't
the
have a
third
grudge
round.
to hold.
He'll be on my team next year when he's on the Bears. No, I'm just kidding.
But let me like impose. So if Cooper Cup and Keenan Allen are both available and they both ask for the same money, who you signing? You got to bring the guy back that was here, right?
I'm signing neither.
If you're signing one of them,
I'm signing
you
neither.
want the guy who is already in your system. I would imagine.
Who already has a rapport with your quarterback.
Your quarterback.
Yeah.
So at this point, I mean, the Bears last year traded for Keenan Allen because, first of all, he was a good coach of the locker room as a player coach. Second of all, they looked at him as the number 1 or number 2 receiver to DJ Moore. This year, you should be grooming Rome Odunze to be your number 1 or number 2 receiver. So the Bears are searching for a third string receiver. They're number 3 wideout who won't be on the field in most plays. Yeah, so why would you go spend a ton of money on a guy like that when there's so many other positions in need? If the Bears are really that concerned about, like I said, the Bears could bring somebody just like he did with Tim Patrick last year, with Ben Johnson brought in Tim Patrick late in the offseason, and the guy was great for the Lions. I mean, I'm not saying his stats were tremendous or amazing or anything, but he did exactly what he needed to do and exactly what wanted him to do. That's all the Bears have to go do. They got to go find somebody like that. Sean and I have talked about it. It could be a guy like Hunter Renfrow, and I'm sure Ben Johnson will get the most out of him.
No,
somebody that doesn't.
And can a guy like Randall make
you're
Tyler
talking about in terms
Scott?
of skill set, but you guys, you're not. There's no point to spending just
All
as
right,
much
guys.
money on your third string receiver
I'm out-
as on
I'm
your
out
first
on
or
Cooper
second
Kupp.
string receiver. That doesn't make any sense in terms of
Can
NFL
Randall
business.
L make
That's not how you build your
Tyler
team.
Scott a quality receiver?
No, I'm out on Cup, dude. 26 million. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, are you insane? Are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
What do you guys think Keenan Allen's asking for? $2 million?
Can Antoine Randall L get the best out of a Tyler Scott? Is the receiver
Maybe.
that you expect to play the third row already on your
Maybe
roster?
you don't know. We don't know.
That would be nice. I mean,
What about this question from Daniel Jeffries, guys? This could be
What's
a
that?
good transition for us. What do you guys think of Myles Garrett wanting out of Cleveland? Should the Bears bite on the bait? This is huge news that came out today that he has requested a trade officially from the Browns. I think it makes sense for the Browns to move on from him. Me and Sean were talking about this before we jumped on. Like, the Browns are upside down on their cap. They don't have many pieces that they can move and get draft picks for. Garrett is really the only one. He would be a helpful piece in them if they trade him and get draft picks to kind of reset this whole thing, get some cheaper contracts here. And I think it makes total sense for the Bears, Daniel. I want to talk about this because this is a huge deal. If this guy is actually available, and usually when these guys request trades, these trades happen. Disgruntled athletes get moved. That's the way this goes. The team will always deny it until it happens. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes, Sean. What do you think? What do you think of the potential to grab a Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns and put him on
Just
this
so you get
defense?
I read an article an hour ago, right before we came on today, just so you guys know that the Cleveland Browns have come out and said they are not going to trade Myles Garrett. No matter what he wants, ask for it, doesn't matter. Just so you guys know.
Mike Ruffalo reported this earlier as well, and the Browns seem to be dug in, but we'll see where it goes. This could be a move forcing the Browns to make some moves to be a better football team too.
3 weeks ago, Pat Riley said Jimmy Butler's not going anywhere. You guys think that's a thing?
2 years ago, last year, every GM says this, guys. Come on.
Jimmy Butler's getting traded before the deadline for sure.
I think I don't know if there's how many teams in the NBA want Jimmy Butler, man.
I do want to say this.
It seems like he forces his way out everywhere he goes.
If Myles Garrett is available, you
do
make
what you can do.
You make
do what you
that
can do
call.
to get him.
You're not getting a Myles Garrett unless you're getting a dual Carter. You're not getting a Myles Garrett.
What's the asking price?
Okay, so this is
funny. What are
funny.
you willing to give up for Myles Garrett?
Yeah, that's the key
Montez
question.
Sweat.
How many, Brendan, Dustin, Brendan, do you guys know how many years are left on Myles Garrett's contract?
He's got 2 more years left on his deal, about 26
You're getting a 2-year rental. So what are you
Yeah.
giving up for a 2-year rental?
Here,
Oh,
from
but 2
Alex
years of
K on
rental.
Bleacher Report. Let me say this, guys, because this was a proposed trade based on like this stuff coming out. Alex K put together a few different, from Bleacher Report, put together a few different propositions that teams could offer to potentially pull Garrett away. And I want to know what you guys think of what the Bears will be giving up in this hypothetical scenario. He suggests the Cleveland Browns would receive the 2025 first-round pick, number 10 overall, 2025 second-round pick, number 41. So you're still keeping one of your seconds. 2025 fifth-round pick, number 149, and Kyler Gordon. The Bears receive Myles Garrett. Where are we at with that, guys?
I don't think that makes your team better.
And Kyler Gordon.
I don't think
Kyler Gordon is an
better.
automatic no for me. So
Yeah, I don't think that makes your team better. I think you're pretty much staying the same, except for you just lost a bunch of draft capital. I mean, first of all, we can go over Kyler Gordon's numbers right now. I was going to do it later on the show if you guys we don't talk about extending him. But I mean, this guy's been one of the best defensive backs in all of football. I mean, listen, like I said, I like Myles Garrett. I think Myles Garrett is probably the best defensive player in all of the NFL. But every single time we watch one of these teams go and trade for one of these guys where they've spent a ton of draft capital on him, a la Khalil Mack, it doesn't ever work out the way the team thought it was going to work out. Ever. We've seen it 100 times where these huge, massive contracts get traded for tons of draft capital, and it never works out the way the team that's taking the player thought. First of all, you're getting him. He is now probably either on the far end of his prime or on the way down.
Still in his prime. He's still.
I think you can get 3 or 4 serviceable years.
He's
out
still
of
in
him.
his
years
prime.
out of him. Yeah, it's just like we thought of Khalil Mack, right? You're going to get 3 or 4 good years out of him, right?
Which is what the Bears got out of Khalil Mack.
The Bears got an injured Khalil Mack that played 67% of the games he was eligible to play in. And the reason he was injured all the time is because he was in his 30s, and 30-year-old players get hurt. This is part of the game. Nobody beats father time. At some point, Myles Garrett is going to sustain some injuries. It's going to happen. He's getting older. His body's not built the same as it was when he was 21, 22 years old. Now, listen, I'm not taking anything away from Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is, by all accounts, the best defense player in the NFL. Last year, he had a 92.3 Pro Football Focus score. That's second among all defensive ends. 83 pressures on quarterbacks. That's first in the NFL. He was 79 PFF score against the run. That's 11th out of defensive ends. So he plays the run very well. He had 14 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 13 QB hits, 56 QB hurries. His sack numbers since 2017 are 7, 13.5, 10, 12, 16, 16, 14, and 14. I mean, his forced fumble numbers are 1, 3, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 3. So the guy takes the ball away. I mean, in 2020, he signed a contract for 5 years.
Sounds like you're making a case for the Bears to trade for Garrett.
Like I said, if you're giving up a first, a second, a fifth, and Kyler Gordon? No, absolutely not.
I think that's too much too. I think
they say we'll take your first this year and we'll take your second next year and a fifth next year. Sure.
Listen, I would give up a first, a second, and a fifth. I'm not giving up Kyler Gordon in that.
Well,
trade.
and I would try to
first, the second, and the fifth.
I would try to push one of those picks next up to next year's draft.
Kyle, let's. You just read off all of Myles Garrett's stats, which are great stats. This guy is a hell of a player. You cannot quantify how much better he makes every other player on that defense when you add him to your team. You talk about players that teams give up too much capital for and then overpay. Montez Sweat is one of those players on the Bears right now. Montez Sweat
Khalil Mack was one of those players.
Montez Sweat is on the Bears right now, though, and he had 5.5 sacks last season. If you add Myles Garrett to the other side of Montez Sweat, Sweat immediately becomes better. Dexter immediately becomes better. You're going to be paying a lot of money.
Of course, if you go get the best defensive end,
be worth it. It could be. If you go get the best,
he's
got to go for a guy like
you guys.
Garrett
If you go get the best defensive end of the draft and he falls to number 10 and you draft him, Montez Sweat immediately gets better. Javon Dexter immediately gets better. You put any stud on the other side of the line, those guys are going to get better.
That guy is not in this draft. Abdul Carter
I'm
is
not
that
saying
guy.
he
In this
is,
draft.
but I'm saying I'm talking about the value. So, like I said, when people were saying the same thing about Khalil Mack when the Bears made that trade, he makes everybody on the field better. He's a one-man wrecking crew. He attracts way too much attention.
He did.
But you traded for a guy who was pushing 30 and he got hurt a lot. which is expected in the NFL, correct? You guys, once you start to get your 28, 29, 30, 31 seasons, do the injuries not go up? If you look at them statistically in the NFL, do injuries not go up the older guys get? We all know that, right? So now you're saying we expect to get Myles Garrett for 12 of the 17 games next year, 13 of the 17 games next year. He's also only get him for 2 years. He's not going to sign a contract extension here. So what's the value? So then you have to take the value of those picks that you're talking about, first, second, fifth, Kyler Gordon, whatever they're asking for, and you got to compare that to the value of Myles Garrett for in the season he's in now, not what he did, not what I'm talking about on paper here, what he's going to do in the future. You're trading for the future of Myles Garrett, not the past.
Sean,
is it worth a first, a second, and a fifth this year?
Yes.
To me, that's just a little tiny bit too steep. I'd say if you could push the second off next year, because Caleb Williams is more important than the defense. You have to build an offensive line. You need to use those first and second round picks and offensive linemen. You have to protect Caleb Williams, or this team's not going to get better. It's not going to get better. This team's not going to succeed if you're getting sacked 68 times a year. It's not going to happen. And the Bears continue to ignore the offensive line. People were mad when they drafted Darnell Wright. That was the right move. You have to draft offensive linemen at some point, guys. I know everybody wants running backs.
Nobody's arguing that, Kyle, but we're talking about Myles Garrett. He's a generational talent at defensive end.
Sean, Scott
Angel says right here, Bears aren't a player away from the Super Bowl. Too much to give up for all the needs the Bears have. I feel like this echoes kind of where you're coming from.
I do, because I think trading for Myles Garrett for a load of picks in a deep D-line draft and you make the defense, your defense, which is got 112 million spent on it right now, that would bring your total up another 25. So you're at 140 million on your defense. For me, this just leaves you with little cap space. No high draft picks. You didn't fix your O-line. You still need multiple starters. To me, it's not a very smart plan. I know what he does and what he is and what he brings, but there's, to me, too many holes still on this team. You need to still build through this draft. It makes sense for a team like Washington. It makes sense for a team like Detroit, because this is a player that you automatically add to that roster, and you're like Super Bowl contender right now because of this move. The Bears make this move, you're still a couple of years away. We're not automatically Super Bowl contenders if we trade for Myles Garrett.
Sean, the Commanders, what was their record last year? What was the Commanders' record last year?
What did they finish? 12-5?
The year before. 4 wins.
I think they had 3 or 4 wins, something like that. I don't remember.
Right, 4 wins, and then they were in the NFC Championship this year.
Yeah, they built their entire offensive line.
But they did build their offensive line. They
can't turn around. You can build your offensive line and still acquire Myles Garrett.
But here's the problem with that. Here's the problem with that, Dustin. You have $69 million under the cap. If you cut Gerald Everett and there was one other person, you bring it up to 80. You bring it up to 86. Or 89, something like that. There was 2 cuts, and I can't remember. I'd have to dig up my notes. But you get those 2 guys out, and you get your cap up to 80. You're going to sign Trey Smith, who's probably going to, if you can try sign Trey Smith, you're probably looking at $20 million. And then you're going to sign maybe Dahlman, who's going to be looking for the NFL average probably at center, which is around 14, 15, 16 million. So between those 2 guys, there's 36 million.
That puts you to 45 million basically.
And then you have the 25 million with him. You're pretty strapped. You're not adding much because you still have to save your draft capital for your 7 draft picks, but I guess you won't have those anymore.
Sean, $27 million that Bears are projected to spend on their draft picks. $27 million the Bears are going to have to give their draft.
For me,
that's like 20 million left over basically. If you sign these guys, which there's no guarantee you're signing Trey Smith. There's no guarantee you're signing
100%.
But if Myles Garrett is available and he can change your defense to an extent that impacts your offense too, because you're creating turnovers, you're creating negative plays for the other team's offense and creating field position for your offense. And those things impact you too. I am not saying don't impact the offensive line. You need to add impact players to this offensive line, but you can do both. Teams do it all the time, guys. It's not just one or the other. They're not mutually exclusive.
When it comes to Trey Smith's going to be a free agent, and the Bears should make a run at him. The Chiefs have way too much to re-sign over the next 2 years to put another $20 million when you already have Jawan Taylor and Creed Humphrey locked up for almost $150 million on that line. You're not going to put another $20 million, $170 million on your line.
Doesn't guarantee the Bears are signing him.
The Bears are going to go for him, and the Bears are going to put up the dough to get that guy.
But there's other
Just
teams
my
with cap space too that could be intriguing. So
There's
you're going to be competing for that.
Another thing nobody's talked about is right now, you can look it up right now, the Chicago Bears have the least amount of rostered players of any team in the NFL. So you guys are not accounting for the millions of dollars we have to spend just to fill roster spots. They have 34 players rostered. They need 53 plus an emergency quarterback. The Bears have to sign, if they get their 8 draft picks, they still have to sign 13 players in free agency, whether they're great players or decent players.
Yeah, it's not all going to be big money.
And really quick to Cliff Victoria's point here that KC can franchise him. Cliff, right now KC has $16 million under the cap. For guards, under the cap, based on the average cost, it's about $15 million.
It's 21, Sean.
For guards?
It's all offensive linemen are considered one position. It's $21 million to franchise tag Trey Smith.
If you're looking at $21 million, you still have to sign Justin Reed. You still have to sign George Karlaftis. You still have to re-sign who's the other big name? Oh, Nick Bolton. I mean, you're talking about Trent McDuffie is coming up.
Justin Reed is a free agent at the end of the next season.
I just mentioned Justin Reed.
Yeah.
There's way too much for Kansas City. When Kansas City already has all this money built in their line, they're going to have to go into the draft and draft a replacement for Trey Smith. That's just my opinion, because Nick Bolton is the leader of that defense. George Karlaftis is pretty close to the second leader on that defense. Justin Reed and Trent McDuffie are elite of elite. If you keep giving away all these pieces, Kansas City is going to crumble.
The Kansas City is going to have to make some decisions.
Exactly.
It seems like Trey Smith is going to be a free agent. CSP Trax points out, and I saw this before we jumped on, the Jags request to interview Ian Cunningham. So, I mean, that just came out before we got on. If they were to hire Ian Cunningham, that adds a 3rd-round pick in this draft and gives you a 3rd-round pick in next draft. Does that open up giving up one of those seconds? Listen, if you're taking Myles Garrett off of the Browns and you're giving up your number 10 pick, I'm good with spending a number 10 pick on Myles Garrett.
Yeah, 100%.
If I'm giving up a 2nd and a 5th, I'm good, especially if I have an extra 3rd if Ian Cunningham were to get hired.
Ian Cunningham has also already had 2 interviews with the Jaguars, and he said that he doesn't like the way that team is structured.
Yeah, but this came out after that, so there's something else going on here. The Jags, it's not that it's been accepted, but they have requested to interview him, and it seems like that would be a final interview based on what just came.
And really quick to Cliff again, really fast, Cliff. Creed Humphrey reset the market last year, signing that 4-year, $72 million contract. That upped the entire offensive lines across the board because his average salary is now over $20 million a year. So,
Vernon, what do you think about Myles Garrett, man? You didn't say much.
I love Myles Garrett. I think pressure wins championships. Good quarterbacks, not getting pressured, beat people. Pat Mahomes not getting pressured, beat Josh Allen for the last 5 years in a row. And I want to say this. If you don't think that there's a defensive end at that 10th spot that's going to be better than Myles Garrett, you fucking do this, because I disagree with you guys personally. I don't think Montez Sweat is a very good. I think he's mediocre. I think Dexter is a spell at best, to be honest. I think he's a depth piece. I think the line sucks. That's what I think about the Bears line. I think they had like 38 sacks, which is 8 more than they did the year before.
They have 40 sacks this season.
They're not good. They're somewhere near the bottom of the league every year. They need to do more. And if you don't think that, if you want to take an offensive lineman with your 10th pick and you don't think you're going to get a quality edge rusher in the 2nd round, then you are just completely neglecting, once again, the idea of a pass rush. And that's how Dennis Allen survives. This is what Dennis Allen does.
Well, then rank to me. What do you think is more important? Sacking the quarterback or protecting Caleb Williams? Which is more important to you?
I think if you can put quality protection around Caleb Williams through later rounds of the draft and free agency, I don't think
if you're missing your 1st-round pick, define quality.
It all depends about what do you guys think is harder to come by, a blue chip edge rusher or a blue chip offensive lineman?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day,
I think this draft is pretty deep.
Well, plus this conversation, unless you can get Myles Garrett to agree to an extension, you need to think you're going to win the Super Bowl in 2025 or 2026, or Myles Garrett is just selling tickets. If you can't win a Super Bowl this year or next, why is Myles Garrett? What's the point? Right now, the Bears, the main goal and focus for the Chicago Bears
is to make you competitive, Kyle.
Yeah,
the point is to make you competitive.
I want to say this, guys. We listen. Before this season started, there was a lot of people with a lot of high hopes about these trenches. I never understood it. I said to you guys on the show multiple times before the season started, it doesn't make sense. They didn't do enough to change it. And people just kept praising this. Now, I'm going to tell you this. We went from 31st in the league with 30 sacks to like 27th in the league with 40 sacks. And I was told Dexter's going to take huge strides and Montez Sweat's going to be the difference maker. It didn't work. It did not work. It didn't work. You have to do something else. And if this is the piece that changes it, if you can say, hey, the offensive line still needs some work, we're going to work in the draft and free agency, but we know for a fact adding Myles Garrett makes this unit a top 15 pass rushing unit, you fucking do it.
Top 10.
If you're a top 15 pass rushing unit and Caleb Williams gets sacked 68 times, what does that accomplish?
Kyle, they're both equally important.
Here's my question.
There's nothing equally as important as to protecting Caleb Williams and focusing on his development. That's the most important thing of the Chicago Bears.
It's not even close. You're not sacrificing one is the other. You don't have
to. Maybe you may be sacrificing one for the other. You guys, what does Ryan Poles' success rate look like drafting offensive linemen late in the draft? Not in the first round. How's that gone for us? Not very good.
Guys,
so now you want to get rid of the second and first round pick. So now he's drafting offensive linemen in the third and fourth and fifth round again, and you are not protecting Caleb Williams.
We played a division where we live and die by the pass. Like the Vikings, the Packers, the Lions, they're built to throw the ball. They have built these teams, structured these teams around pocket quarterbacks. Okay. You have to apply pressure to these guys. And I told you guys this when Montez Sweat was the only person left. Hold on. When Montez Sweat was the only person left on the line because Dexter went down with an injury, Billings went down with an injury. I said to you, this is where the $98 million man makes a difference. This is where this guy rises above and still shows you paid me to be that guy. I don't need him. I'm the man. It didn't work. It did not work.
Brennan,
even though Sweat is being paid like that guy.
How good were the Bears? How good were the Bears when they traded for Khalil Mack? Were they Super Bowl? Could they win a Super Bowl with Khalil Mack, but not protecting a quarterback?
Well, they had the best defense in the NFL.
Throwing the ball.
Yeah,
could they win a Super Bowl?
Khalil Mack,
no,
they had the number one defense in the NFL.
Guys, at the end of the day, the most important position in all American sports is the quarterback in the NFL. The Chicago Bears finally got one. They refused to protect him. At this point, Bears fans alike should be like, hey, go protect the quarterback of the future for the Chicago Bears. The first pick in the draft should be a left tackle, so you don't have to sign one in free agency to $150 million fucking deal. After that, you should be signing guards,
what is
centers.
This mentality like?
I agree with you.
What is this mentality like? If we get Myles Garrett, we're just going to neglect.
Did you just listen to Sean? Did you just listen to Sean? So if
they get Myles Garrett,
you need four.
We're good on the offensive line.
You need four offensive linemen.
We got Myles Garrett.
You need four. Where are you getting these offensive linemen? Tell me where you're getting them.
My question to you though, Kyle, is why do you feel like if they trade for Garrett, they're just going to abandon fixing the line?
They have because they would give away. They would if they trade for Garrett, they give away a first and second round pick and $25 million.
You can still draft.
Where are you addressing the offensive line?
As Trax pointed out, it's $19.8 million for Garrett in 2025, and then $25 in 2026.
Here's my question to you guys:
add on potential.
Adding Myles Garrett would make the Chicago Bears have the most expensive defense in the entire NFL.
You got to commit to something.
This. Is this defense the most expensive based on talent, or are we overpaid?
Well, we've overpaid up to this point for sure. Clearly, the defense sucked last year, Sean, and Montez Sweat is a big part of that.
Well, the defense here,
the defense sucked, so you need that still.
The defense sucked after they sustained injuries because the first 7 weeks, I don't think they allowed more than 16 points a game.
The first 7 weeks, they played some really shitty offenses too.
Doesn't matter. They held down Houston. Houston was the darling.
Houston was a shitty offense this season. Bobby Sloan got fired for
paying Montez Sweat and trading a second round pick was wrong. Two wrongs don't make a right. If Myles Garrett is available, you make that phone call.
I'm with Broski there, man.
If you guys think that the Bears shouldn't even entertain,
that's why it's a conversation, guys.
That's insane.
I'll say
it's
this.
Like
right?
it's like how could it's like saying Saquon Barkley's on the trading block. We don't want to focus on that. We don't. When one of the best players in the league
going to keep us from spending money on an offensive line.
When one of the best players in the league becomes available, you make the damn call. It doesn't matter. You make the phone
for the last 30
you make
years.
the call. Because maybe they eat some of the contract.
Yeah, maybe they Luka Doncic.
They're not
Maybe
eating
they give
the
you
contract for
Garrett
Myles
nothing.
Garrett, dude. See, guys, in the last 30 years, the Chicago Bears are the only team in the NFL have spent more money on defense and offense every single year. They have been in the playoffs 4 times. Last year, they spent $112 million on defense, $93 million on offense. Caleb Williams, your rookie quarterback, was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. They averaged 18.2 points per game, 28th on off. They averaged 283 yards per game, which is 32nd in the NFL. Their defense in points allowed per game was ranked 13th. The Bears went 5-12. They had a middle of the pack defense, a back of the pack offense, actually last in passing yards per game, and they went 5-12. You can always outscore the other team. The Commanders, the Washington Commanders, won a lot of games this year, 42-35, 35-28. They didn't win any games 3-0. They didn't win any games like that. You got to score points in the NFL. Ben Johnson said it when he got to the podium. It's the first thing he said. This is a quarterback-driven league. The most important thing on this team is the quarterback for the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams. The first thing you need to do when you get here is protect him. They've already had conversations between Ben Johnson and ryanpoles about addressing the offensive line. They're going to use a big chunk of this money in free agency. We already know that. A huge chunk of this $57 million the Bears have to spend in free agency is going to the offensive line. And whatever they can address in free agency, because they need 4 offensive linemen, is going to have to be addressed in the draft. We've seen ryanpoles take guys in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round in the offensive line. It has not worked out well for them. He's drafted 9 offensive linemen. 2 of them have been starters. 2 of them of 9. It's not good.
I'll say this. I'll say this really quick. Trax. Number one, I'm not saying I don't want him because he's 29, because I just said I think he's got 3 or 4 serviceable, pretty good years left in him. So the age has nothing to do with it. It has to do with the position in which the Chicago Bears are in. If the Chicago Bears were in the Detroit Lions situation, I'd be like, giddy up, pick up that phone, kick those tires, and burn that building down.
You can win now.
Yes. Get him here.
Myles Garrett. Don't need your 1st round pick. Don't need your 2nd round pick.
But the Bears probably offer less because their pick is much better than the Lions. Guys, the value of a top 10 pick holds clout. And I'm going to say this too, guys. I'm
just saying, but I'm just speaking. I'm speaking hypothetically, Brandon. No, I'm saying if the Bears were in a position where we thought they could be in an NFC Championship game, and this would be the guy that puts us into a Super Bowl.
That you, because you got how this question was asked, confused. Are you stating though you wouldn't give up this much for Garrett? Because what you're saying right now sounds like I wouldn't even show interest. I wouldn't even make the fucking phone call.
I wouldn't give up. I wouldn't give up the Khalil Mack package.
Would you make the call picks and ask the Browns?
I would make the call. I would make the call. Yes.
Here, let me say 2 things. First thing, the Khalil Mack package is not going to happen for Myles Garrett. It's not going to be 2 firsts. You're going to give up a 1st and probably a 2nd, maybe a 3rd, and another later round pick. All right. You're going to still keep one of your seconds. You're still going to have a good amount of cap space to make moves. The second thing I want to say is that the position you're in as a franchise in terms of competitiveness changes drastically if you add Myles Garrett. If you have Sweat on one side and Garrett on the other, your defense immediately changes shape. The performance of your defensive backs becomes better. The performance of your linebackers, which suffered greatly with Edmonds this year, they get better. Your defensive tackles perform better. Like everything gets better when you add Garrett on the opposite side of Sweat. Sweat becomes better.
Guys, we saw the Texans do this with Danielle Hunter last year. They went and got the best defensive tackle end available in
Danielle Hunter is not on the level.
And their offensive line sucked, and they looked worse than they did the year prior because their
Texans
offensive
made the playoffs.
I would say
the offensive line was ranked 28th.
Their defense was a big part of that, man.
They did the exact same thing they did the year prior. And Dustin, by all accounts, you're the person who says that CJ Stroud had some huge regression. You think maybe it's in fact because his offensive line sucks? You think that has anything to do with it?
His offensive line,
maybe his offensive line sucking has a little bit to do with it, just a little bit.
Kyle, you keep acting as if I don't want to address the offensive line. That is not the case. You keep saying that if you add Garrett, you can't do anything about this offensive line. That is not the case.
Both things
can happen. The Bears' offensive line needs to be addressed. You don't have to put all of your assets into it, though. You don't have
if you lose your first round pick, your second round pick, and guaranteed $20 million of your free agency spending money, does that handicap you a little bit adding to the 4 offensive linemen?
Listen, you're not going to be able to do everything. You're not going to be able to address everything.
Yes, so do
but
what's
if you
most
can
important,
address both
the offensive
trenches,
line.
You can add 2 to 3 offensive linemen between the free agency and draft. Maybe one's not Trey Smith. Maybe it is. If it's Trey Smith, then you can go cheaper in other spots. But if you go cheaper in other spots, then you can still address left tackle potentially. You can. There's multiple ways to do this.
What left tackle?
You don't have to just pick one or the other.
What left tackle in free agency that's not expensive or a 3rd or 4th round pick is better than Braxton Jones?
You'd be looking at Cam Robinson. That's probably your
best.
You're
looking at Braxton Jones.
That's your other option, pal. You just stick with Braxton Jones and you draft a guard that you can put next to him. There's multiple options and ways you can approach this. I'm not a big fan of Braxton Jones. If I can get Myles Garrett, I'll keep Braxton Jones for another year and then I'll reset at left tackle.
It's pretty well known that in the NFL, if your quarterback is your most important asset, the guy you want that's the most important to your team, then the guy blinding his weak side, blocking his blind side is the second most important player on the team. Braxton Jones is a below average left tackle for a right-handed quarterback. You have to go get a left tackle. You have to go get a left tackle, guys.
Probably the most.
You can't ignore left tackle for the rest of our lives. At some point, the Bears have to go, hey, you know what? We're going to do something the rest of the NFL, all these teams in the playoffs and the Super Bowls have done. Let's go get a left tackle. At some point,
neither of the top left tackle candidates are projected to be left tackles in the NFL. That might hurt a little too.
Yeah, you're looking at a Josh Connerly. There's not Campbell and Banks both
guards
potentially start out at guard and then can move.
I'll be honest. The guy I want is
you're
Josh
not getting a left tackle at 10, guys. You're not getting a left tackle.
Then trade back, Brennan, and get a left tackle.
I would trade back and end up with Josh Simmons out of
you trade back, but you wouldn't trade the pick.
I'll put this out here because the chat keeps mentioning it. Garrett says he wants to win
to play for a contender.
100%. It's got to be a combination, though, of a contender and the cap space to make and the draft capital to make this deal work. So Garrett's also going to have to look at potential when he looks at the potential deals that he would be okay with. I think the Bears adding Myles Garrett makes them not a contender, but a competitor for the playoffs. And then you can kind of build on that over the next couple of years. I don't think we're not going to come to an agreement, but I do believe that if Garrett is available, Sean, you said you make the call, you see what you can give up. If you can balance your assets and still have enough to impact other areas of your football team, Myles Garrett is better at his position than any other player you're going to add at any position. You can't argue that, right?
I don't disagree with kicking the tires and seeing what they're asking for.
Yeah, I mean, Myles Garrett's up there for sure.
Okay, but I'm talking potentially available, free agency, draft, whatever it is, trade. Myles Garrett is the best at his position he's better at his position than Trey Smith as it is at his position. He's a better player at his
Hall
position.
of Famer.
Correct. So you go get a guy like that, and then you figure the rest out later.
Yeah, but we did that with Khalil Mack. Listen, if the Bears were, if they were offering us a Dallas Mavericks, LA Lakers trade for Luka Doncic, if that's what they wanted in return, hey, we'll take a first round pick and nothing else. I'd be like all 100% in.
Yeah, but
go
you
get
wouldn't
Myles
have even
Garrett.
made the
Not
call
even a question
as of 10 minutes ago. And I'm going to be honest, guys. When I saw Myles Garrett's contract, I thought the Browns got a steal.
It's a steal.
I was like, oh my God.
I said that on
this guy should be making $40 million a year.
That was one of the best contracts signed in the NFL.
In history.
I agree with Sean.
Mike Ditka traded his entire draft.
And get this.
How did that work out? He traded his entire draft for a player that had never played in the NFL.
Did he trade it for Ricky Williams?
Yes, Ricky Williams before he had ever played a game in the NFL. It's a little different than Myles Garrett, who we know dominates the NFL currently.
Myles Garrett is also the 3rd highest paid pass rusher in the NFL. Montez Sweat is right below him at 5. Wrap your head around that. The production that you get from
one has nothing to do with the other. Like every time we get into conversations about we could be talking about defensive end from Canadian Football League, and you want to talk about Montez Sweat. He's here, whether you like it or not. He ain't going anywhere. Montez Sweat is
and he's not good enough.
He's going to be here for the next 3 years.
I think players have a down year, and I think that Montez Sweat not only was double and triple teamed. I also think that he dealt with multiple injuries in his ankle.
If you give me some hope,
and he had a little problem with his burst last year. but I'm giving this guy the benefit of the doubt because we've seen him be a disruptive player. We've seen him
12
get
and a
to
half
the
sacks
quarterback
last year,
and
Sean.
cause
Last
disruption.
year, he had 12 and a half
well,
sacks.
2 years
1
ago,
year ago today, the guy had 12 and a half
2 years.
sacks.
Sean.
No, 1 year ago.
As I
This day
pointed
that we're
out-
on right now, 1 year ago, we're talking about 12 and a half
And
sacks.
really quick, I wanted to say to Scott really quick on Abdul Carter, my personal feeling on Carter is he's going to probably end up in Jacksonville at number 4. If not,
or potentially number 1 in Tennessee. Tennessee is not going to draft a quarterback, I don't
oh
think.
yeah, I guess he could go number 1 to Tennessee. I mean, I was thinking
Yeah.
Tennessee might want to go a quarterback because both their quarterbacks
No,
suck.
Tennessee's
I
Wow.
want
gonna
to comment
trade
on
out.
this guy.
They're going to trade
He
out.
says, I don't know your name, but the young man in the glasses is 100% wrong. This coming from the King of the North Alliance. First of all, thanks for calling me a young man. I appreciate that. Second of all, I don't know how much longer the Lions are going to be a king in the North after everything they lost. I love that team, but I am not saying that I do not want the Bears to address the offensive line, guys. Just because if Myles Garrett is available, I want to look into that does not mean that I don't want the offense. Clearly, I played offensive line in high school. I know how important it is to the running of an offense and to protecting your quarterback. Offensive line needs to be addressed, guys. But if you have a chance at a guy like Myles Garrett, that changes your team and its trajectory.
Well, and I want
as you add them to your team. So it's about what if we're talking about adding Kyler Gordon and along with your first, your second, and your fifth pick, I'm not doing that. But if I can give up a first, a third, and a fifth and keep my 2 seconds and get Myles Garrett, I'm doing it.
First, the third, and the fifth, I'd be down.
It begs the question, T, because you said you're a Lions fan. The Lions stand a better chance at beating the Commanders if Aiden Hutchinson's on the field?
Yeah, a little bit, probably.
Well, let me ask you guys this: if the Bears
That
trade
hurt.
for Myles Garrett,
That
say
hurt.
they trade for Myles Garrett, right? Say it's a first, a second, and a fifth, and they trade for Myles Garrett, and they have to start kind of bargain shopping in free agency because they just gave $25 million to Myles Garrett. You know, they're not going to have to give $29 million to their draft class. And their offensive line doesn't work out the way they want. He gets, let's say that what's his name gets tagged. They're not good at that. They don't hit on their draft picks for my offensive line because they're too late picks. And Caleb Williams gets sacked 60 times again. Are you then regretting trading for Myles Garrett?
Not if he has 18 sacks.
But what if you're 5 and 12?
Trading for Myles
What if you're
Garrett.
5 and 12?
Not if he
He did
keeps
his
putting the
job.
ball in Caleb's hands.
What if you're 5 and 12 and Caleb Williams has 3,500 yards rushing, 20 touchdowns, and 6 picks? Are you regretting drafting or trading for Myles Garrett?
Listen, I want to see both things addressed. Okay, I do, and I don't think it has to be bargain bin. You keep pigeonholing it into like, well, if you get Garrett, you can't give real assets to your offensive line.
The risk goes up a lot.
I disagree,
A lot.
but
Risk
good
goes up
teams
a lot.
make these things happen. Good, well-run organizations and good GMs find ways to impact multiple sides of their lines. So
I agree.
there's
I agree 100%.
You don't think polls can do that?
I agree 100%.
That
I
goes to
don't know
this.
if I'd say the Bears are a well-run organization. I do agree with the rest of it.
Well, hopefully they are. Things are changing, right? They hired Ben Johnson and they got this great coaching staff. V-Dog says, are you all good with Poles' extension for 5 years? He has a total of 7 years altogether because he still has 2 years left on existing deal via Courtney Cronin. This is another thing we wanted to touch on, right, Sean?
Mm-hmm. I think that the extension was just 4 years, and they matched the contract with Ben Johnson. Did it say they extended him? So it's 7 years?
No, it's going to match up with Ben Johnson.
So it's going to be 5 years.
5
so
years.
he had 1 year left. They added 4 years on to match
No,
him.
he has
up
2
with
years
Ben.
left right now.
From what
He's
I understand,
3
they
years.
reported that it was done because what I saw was they're likely to do it and not.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything that says it's done. The Bears
Ryan
always
Poles-
hide that shit.
Ryan Poles has 2 years left on his contract, so there's no point to extend him right now. You can do it next year.
But the
You can
Bears
extend
are.
him next
It's
year.
coming out for a reason, Kyle. They're going to extend him.
Yeah, well, I mean, all this stuff comes out, but ultimately, it's up. If the Bears
For a
want to
reason.
talk to him, if Bears want to say, "Hey, we'll talk, Ryan, we'll talk to you next season about a contract extension," they have every right to do that. He has a 2026 fifth-year option with the Chicago Bears, and it's a team option. So if the Bears want him here, he's here, regardless of what he wants.
What happened to Ben Johnson's
They want him here, he's
camp
here.
not
Hey,
wanting
guys.
him extended?
I
What
want
happened to that?
That was all made up. Did you listen to Rick Smith's interview? His agent? It was all made up. All that
stop
stuff
on the
was-
next one, Dustin, because I really like this right
All
here.
the stuff was made up.
Cliff Victoria. If Abdul Carter is still there at 4, draft value chart says giving up 10 and 39 would be fair. It's 10 points in Jackson's favor, almost even. Would you guys do this? Because I
Yes.
almost would.
Immediately.
I
It's the
almost
same principle.
would.
It's the same principle for Myles Garrett to me. Abdul Carter projects to be that kind of defensive end in the NFL. If you only have to give up that to get Abdul Carter, Hell yes, I would do it in a
I would
second.
do it in a heartbeat.
Sean,
I
in
don't
what
see that
world?
happening.
In what world are you moving up from 10 to 4, and just all you're giving up is a second
Yeah,
round?
that's-
That's
You
insane.
give up a next year's pick
Hey,
too.
You're giving up a first round.
You're talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars and Shad Khan. Let's
guys,
not
we
get
gave up
let's
a
not
future
get ahead
do
of
something
ourselves.
Dallas
We gave-
Maverick.
We gave up a future first round pick to move from 3 to 2. From 3 to 2.
So you're saying it's impossible to move up
I'm saying
from 10 to
no
4?
team in the NFL is going to say, "Hey, you want to
That
move up
wasn't a
6
first round pick they gave up
into
for
the top
that.
for what? 2 seconds?"
Jacksonville
second
could
round
use
pick,
as much
yeah.
capital as they can get.
There's no way in hell they're
Or was it
giving.
third?
They're going to do
Jacksonville
that.
Here,
should
I'll
be
tell you
trading.
this. If I can end up with
Jacksonville
Abdul
should be
Carter
trading
and
back.
save the money, I'm doing it. Because I have that extra second round pick. And if Cunningham gets signed, we have an extra third round pick.
Yeah.
So
Listen,
I'm doing
that's
it all
like
day.
that's fantasy world to me.
Yeah,
Like,
that's-
if you're giving up 10 and 39 to get Abdul Carter,
Yes,
hell yes,
yes,
you do
yes,
that.
you
because
do
he's
that. Yes,
he's
you definitely do
potentially the next Myles Garrett on a rookie contract.
Yes, and you do that, and you spend all your free agency money on a lineman, and you draft a lineman with your other second round pick. Yes,
And Kyle
Then
would
you
be
do
so
that.
happy in that
100% in.
scenario.
And listen, we didn't really tell. How do you guys? Ryan Poles would be the guy making these decisions we're talking about, potentially trading for Garrett or potentially trading up for Abdul Carter. All these hypotheticals we're throwing out there. Do we trust Ryan Poles to get these things right? Because when I said well-run organizations can figure these things out, Kyle started laughing. So how do you feel about the potential that Ryan Poles is going to be here for the next 5 years, potentially lined up with Ben Johnson, Kyle?
To me, it sounds like a foregone conclusion, regardless of how I feel about it. I mean, I'm not saying.
Well, how you feel is what I'm interested in. I
don't love Ryan Poles. I think Ryan Poles has missed on plenty. I think Ryan Poles has done a lot of good things here. I mean, if you look at the 3 off seasons for Ryan Poles, he had the blockbuster trade that everybody's going to be talking about for the next 30 years. Then he got Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze, and then he got Ben Johnson. I mean, you could look at things that the impact that Ryan Poles has had here, and you could say that there's a kind of a culture shift happening here. You can also look at his draft classes and free agency additions and say that Ryan Poles has not learned very well on the job. Now, am I saying that can't be done? No. For all I know, Ryan Poles goes out and has the best draft of any GM in the NFL this year. I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, guys, just right now, for Ryan Poles to get 2 good offensive linemen, he has to sign and draft 5. And it's sad. It's sad that I have to think like that. But for 2 of them to stick, he has to use 5 draft picks or 2 free agency additions, 3 draft picks in order for 2 of them to stick.
That's kind of standard for the NFL, Kyle.
We've seen him draft
a lot of seeds to get something to grow.
But now you're talking about free agency and guys who have proven themselves already. Like Nate Davis wasn't a good signing.
Nate Davis wasn't a good terrible signing, and I said it at the time. Yes, I was not.
Didn't you previously say we have the least rostered players in the NFL?
Yeah.
Then no, Ryan Poles drafting is not something I'm confident in. That's a terrible, terrible thing to be the best at. Players
I don't know if it's
stick.
the least, but we're up there. I mean, there's been a lot of cuts and stuff that happened since I read that article.
That is not
the Bears are near the top for the least amount of
success.
rostered players in the NFL.
We have gotten rid of most of the people on our team that I've chosen over the last 3 years. That's not a testament to Ryan Poles' success.
No, it's not. 15 wins in 3 years is not a testament to Ryan Poles.
I mean, I don't hold Ryan accountable for the first year here because that was a complete salary fix. That's all he was doing was let's get rid of all this dead salary cap. Most of it from Khalil Mack. All he was trying to do is get rid of. I can't spend money. We don't have money to spend. That's his first year here.
Trying to clear cap.
That's why he was signing. Yeah, that's why he's signing Equanimous St. Brown, N'Keal Harry, Byron Pringle, because he couldn't spend money on good players. So his first year here, I don't hold him accountable for any win, loss, anything like that at all. Where Ryan Poles screwed up big time was the Nate Davis signing was the worst signing one of the worst signing in Bears history, no doubt about it. You literally paid that guy $30 million to play 18 games. B, retaining Matt Eberflus set all of this team back another year. We just set him back another year. And then C was the trade for Chase Claypool, the signing of PJ Walker, knowing he wasn't going to make the team. He just gave him $4 million to play in training camp. Yeah. That was stupid. So you can point to, and then his third round picks, Velus Jones, Zach Pickens, have been absolutely atrocious. And if I could pick a different GM to be the Bears GM, would I? Absolutely. Is he the Bears GM? Yes. Do I trust him to build this team? Like I just said, can he do it? Yes, but they have to fall in his lap. Like he's got to sign 4 offensive linemen for 2 of them to be good starters.
Guys, V-Dog says right here that he does trust them now. With all the changes made top to bottom, what's in the past is irrelevant. Now, I'll say this. Ryan Poles has a lot of question marks, a lot of negatives on his resume, but he has some positives too. We've talked about him, and V-Dog's kind of, alluding to them here in terms of now he's got Ben Johnson. He got the quarterback, hopefully the the franchise quarterback for your team. He is changing the culture. It looks like you said, Kyle, culture shift, right? So it makes sense. If you let him hire Ben Johnson and sign him to a 5-year contract, it makes sense to line up his contract with Ben Johnson. It makes football sense.
Can I ask you an honest question? Does anybody on this panel, and this is a sincere question, because I know the coaches are involved in the draft, but how much is Ben Johnson involved in picking? Like, does he get to pick his players?
No, he doesn't get to pick, but he better be heavily involved, and him and Ryan Poles better have a very clear understanding of what their plan is going.
He has to provide the needs. He has to tell Ryan Poles, this is how I run my offense, and this is what I need to do.
Yeah, but Vernon Eberflus did that with the 3 technique, and it didn't happen. I mean,
yeah, they passed on Jalen Carter.
Yeah, Ryan Poles needs to start listening to the coaches.
And I'm sorry, Kyle.
If Ben Johnson has a lot to say about the draft, then I think they could nail this. If he doesn't, and Ryan's like, it's my way or
there has to be symbiosis.
As you say that, they did go get Dexter and they did go get Billings, so they addressed the 1T and the 3T. They just didn't address it the way that we thought it should be addressed.
Well, that's important.
I'm going to say this, man. When you went through the list of Ryan Poles things we can look back on and say we could have done better. After this season, guys, I want to, honestly, after this season, how do you grade the trading of a 2nd-round pick and a $98 million contract for 5.5 sacks? Where do you grade that? You give that
you didn't pay him off that. You paid him off the year before and the year before that.
Okay, what letter grade do you give that?
He had a bad year. People have bad years, but there's multiple reasons why he had a bad year. It just so happened to be the year after we signed him.
His track record about Nate Davis. You told me the same thing about Nate Davis.
His track record does not say he's a bad player.
You told me Nate Davis was
his first season with double-digit sacks was the season before this past.
Yeah, but his first season on the Bears, when he was traded for, it was half Bears, half Washington. He was top 10 in tackles for loss. He was top 10 in quarterback pressures. He was top 10 in sacks. He was ranked number 2 against the run of all defensive ends. I mean, dude, you didn't trade for him to get. You were like, oh, I got 5.5 sacks. He sucks. Was never the Bears' thought process. The Bears traded for him because he plays their style of defense. Defensive ends who could collapse the line and attack the run. Defensive ends who can create pressures, even if they're not getting home every single time. They still cause problems in the backfield, throw off the timing of the offense. I mean, Montez Sweat is a good player. I do agree with you guys, though. In order for Montez Sweat to maximize his potential, there has to be attention given to somebody else on the defensive line. It can't just be Montez Sweat. Somebody else has to be heard of at some point on this defense. I'm not talking about DeMarcus Walker.
I agree. They should invest in a 3-tech.
And Myles Garrett.
Yeah, and listen, we can get into that conversation too, guys. Listen, I like Jalen Carter. I think he's one of the best defensive tackles in all football. It would have been awesome if the Bears drafted him. I also don't blame Ryan Poles for not drafting him if he's a character guy, and this guy was involved in 2 accidental deaths of his best friends, and instead of getting out of his car and helping them, he drove away from the scene. I mean, you could see how a guy could look at a guy like that and be like, you know what? I don't want that guy on my team. If the Deshaun Watson stuff had come out before he got drafted, all the molesting massage therapists, they would not have. Nobody would have drafted him. He would not have been drafted by the Houston Texans at number 4 or 8, whatever it was. He would have fallen to like the 5th round and been stuck on the bench.
I'll be honest. It really, really helps when you have a Josh Sweat, when you have what's that other big guy, Jordan Davis. He wouldn't have had the same success here in Chicago because he would have been trying to do it all by himself. He's not doing it by himself. He's got a lot of help in Philadelphia, guys.
I'm going to flip the coin here. You guys said if we go after Myles Garrett, you're tying your hands. You can't address the offensive line.
I didn't say that, number one.
If you address the offensive line with your top 10 pick, what the hell are you doing about your pressure? 2nd-round pick? You're going to get some Hall of Famer in the 2nd round?
This draft, from all intents and purposes, is pretty deep on the defensive line. And there's a number of good pass rushers in this draft.
A 2nd-round pick changing the outcome of the entire line.
I hear, Brandon, I can't sit here and predict the future because a prospect's a prospect.
I'm asking you, what's your plan?
I don't know if there is a next Myles Garrett.
I think.
We don't know that until they actually get in the football field. Because I'll tell you this, J.J. Watt was a 2-star recruit.
But Sean, you have to think about these things if you're a GM.
Until they get here.
If you're a GM,
Vernon,
you have to be ahead of this. You have to think about this.
I want the closest shots to his target. So 1st, 2nd-round picks to protect Caleb Williams. Because if he starts missing in the 3rd round again, and that's where he's addressing the offensive line, it's not going to turn out well for Caleb Williams.
What are you doing about the defensive line?
That's where you need to. Where if you that's where you go in the second pick in the second round or third round and draft a defensive lineman. If you miss, at least you could still outscore the other
That
team.
should change the
If
outcome.
you miss on the offensive line, Caleb Williams' development is ruined. It's ruined. You're going to ruin it.
Second round defensive
Today,
end, that should change the outcome.
I want to bring this up because we're talking about potential draft picks that could improve this team today.
Wait, hold on, really quick, Brandon. You're saying right now there couldn't be a potential game-changing defensive end in the second round of the
What
NFL
I'm saying,
draft?
Sean, and you guys should be aware of this already. You guys keep pitching to me that Trey Smith and the center from Falcons is going to be available, and the Bears are going to push hard for it. Who is available at defense? Who are you going to sign?
I'm worried.
Who's
worried
the
about
difference maker?
Here,
What makes
Brandon.
it better?
Hey, Brandon.
Josh
I'm
Sweat,
worried
Khalil
about the
Mack,
development
Josh
of
Sweat.
Josh Sweat has potential.
Khalil Mack. We're going to bring Khalil Mack back. That's going to.
If he's
And
cheap,
here, I'll tell you
if
this:
he's cheap,
the
yeah, why
Bears
not?
can go get Josh Sweat and save a lot of money, and the guy goes and gets after the quarterback, playing opposite of Montez Sweat. I think
he's
that would
got
be a really good combination.
8.5 sacks this season. 8.5
Yeah, he
sacks.
also
Limited
missed
playing.
half the year.
Led the Eagles this season with
He was
8.5.
playing
I
limited.
think that the
playing.
free agents are better on the offensive line than they are on the defensive line. That's what I think. And I think you're going to address your lines in free agency and in the draft. So what I'm saying to you guys is if you have all these offensive linemen that are becoming free agents that you guys love and you think they're going to pay $20 million for, when do you address the defensive line? In the
Well, Brandon, you're
second
also-
round of the
Brandon, you're
draft?
also-
In the
Brandon, you're also-
second round of the draft?
You're also comparing one position of defensive end to 4 offensive linemen.
You
Listen,
I hope
there's-
there's a lot of offensive linemen out there. I hope because you need 4 of them.
And there's a lot of needs that this Bears team has, guys, and there's so much that still needs to happen. So, like, we're gonna have to see. But I personally think if Myles Garrett is available, that's a guy you got to go after hard. And again, you figure out the rest. Similar to like if Luka Doncic is available, the Lakers just got to make that trade and then figure out what happens next. Okay,
Yeah,
so
well,
like,
I mean, if they're giving them away, yeah, I'll take it.
yeah, for sure. Like that would be great. But with the draft talk that we're talking today, I wanted to bring this up. Matt Miller came out with his 2-round mock draft today, and I wanted to throw that out to you because it's got 3 picks for the Bears that I want to gauge you guys' interest on and how he put this together. For the Bears at number 10, he has Kelvin Banks. Basically starting him at guard and then moving him to tackle next year if you move on from Braxton Jones. The 39th pick, Sean, you're going to like this. Omarion Hampton, running back out of North Carolina, is who he has with that 39th pick going to the Chicago Bears.
I do like that, but I don't think he's going to be there at 39 personally.
Well, Matt Miller does. And at 41, this addresses your need, Brandon. Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle, Ohio State, with the 41st pick. You're getting your 3 tech that can apply pressure. He's great against the run, too. I thought this was an interesting little mock that Matt Miller put out today. What do you guys think of those 3 players? Would you be happy with that return from your first 3 picks?
Oh yeah, 100%. That would, if the Bears did that, that would be Ryan Poles' best draft ever. Just to those 3 picks alone, that would be his best draft ever. If he can get Banks and put him at guard, and then you can leave Braxton Jones there, and Banks can help him out in his on Caleb's weak side,
And then
Banks
transition to left tackle potentially.
And Banks can pick up some of the slack over there, and then you go get a guy.
And when you're talking about Braxton Jones, remember, we just praised the new offensive line coach hire. We just praised it. We just sat here and talked about how much experience this guy has, all the units that he's made.
But you also need offensive linemen, dude. We have none.
But I'm saying to you, maybe this guy can make Braxton Jones a better player. I don't know.
I'm not.
I don't
entirely
know.
certain, Sean.
Braxton Jones' problem is his feet.
You guys,
They're
I don't
too
think Braxton
slow.
Jones is starting
And
next
his neck.
season. I don't think he's starting next
With
season.
the injury, it's going to be close. Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
don't
very
think he's
close.
starting next season. So you're not going to have a left tackle. You're going to have Larry Borum at left tackle to start next season.
It's going to
No,
be very important.
no,
that the
we're
Bears
not.
draft the left. I think Kelvin Banks.
Don't ever
I don't know
speak
if
that
Borum's
again,
going to be on
Kyle.
the team.
Listen, if you're picking at 10, Kelvin Banks is there. He's a must take in that
Here,
situation.
and really quick,
Yes. I
if
agree
you're
with
looking down for agent defensive linemen, this class sucks.
It's not good. It's not
It
good. That's why
sucks.
Garrett being available is such a huge deal.
It's brutal.
The
man.
Bears definitely
I-
need to listen to what the Browns have to say. If they say some shit like, "Hey, we want Kyler Gordon and 5 picks from you," no, absolutely not. You're not doing your team
But-
any. Now you're just more
Here.
behind than you were. You just have Myles Garrett, but you're just further behind than you were at the end of
At
this
27 years old, go sign Josh Sweat, and you're going to fix a lot of problems.
The Rams
Josh
just
would be a
did,
great signing, I think. But again, It just comes down to the difference between Garrett and Sweat is huge. It's just
Sure.
huge, the impact that they make on the field and on your team. I think Omarion Hampton would be a great pick there, guys. I like this potential draft. I would love to see that. I like Judkins better. I think Miller had him going like 59 to the Steelers in this mock. But Omarion Hampton would be a hell of a pick at 39 for the Bears. And I like Tyleik Williams a lot too, man. Like Kyle said, that would be a hell of a haul and really impact some areas of need for the Bears right off the bat.
The Rams just informed Cooper Kupp he will be traded.
That's what the chat was talking about.
I didn't know the Rams had told him he's.
Jax was putting out the statement from Kupp basically.
Here, I'll be honest with you. My favorite back is not going to change in this draft. It's Caleb Johnson, but I also love Hampton, and I would take Hampton. I would definitely be happy with Hampton. And I'm going to tell you, one of these high picks to fit his offense is going to be a running back. Which one's there is going to be the question.
You saw how much he loved to use the dual running backs in Detroit. He wants that in Chicago. I think Swift is one of them. You got to add that power.
And I'll say this, and I know you guys are going to call me a homer for this one, but if I would take Devin Neal in the 3rd or 4th round as well. Devin Neal is an absolute beast. He's a stud, and I would take him in a heartbeat, and I think he would fit the offense. My only problem is
where he's the opposite of DeAndre Swift, though.
Yes, he is. He is the opposite of DeAndre Swift. He can actually run between the tackles.
How big is he?
He's a little bit smaller, but he gets outside. He's got speed, elusiveness. He actually looks
exactly like DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, he's number 4. That's weird. Yeah, he is Swift. That's Swift just playing in college.
Here, and I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of DeAndre Swift. There's a lot of things he can't do on a football field, man. There really is. You need to get him in space for him to be effective. You can't use him on 1st and 2nd down because he can't run between the tackles. He's not a true 3rd down back in the NFL. And that's probably why Ben Johnson said peace and kicked him out of Detroit. I mean, you guys remember and I'm going to get into this because that fat piece of shit, double vodka Don from New Jersey, I got some words for that guy. Mr. He needs an elite line and all these guys. Hey, dumbass, Jamal Williams had 1,000 yards and 17 touchdowns. And DJ Shark was his number 2 wide receiver. And they finished 5th overall in offense. Fucking loser. Oh, yeah, and Brock Wright was their tight end. Jesus.
I like this comment. That was awesome, Sean. Good job. I like this comment from Chicago Sports Podcast. He says, guys, Olin Kreutz is big on Dan Rochar. He played for him in New Orleans, I believe, right, when Kreutz went there. So he knows what he's capable of. He said he will get our line right. He's big on accountability and getting our guys right. Okay,
that's they offered Rochar?
I'm very encouraged by that.
Did they offer Rochar more than $15 an hour?
I did see Olin Kreutz sent out a clapping text after it was announced. But from all intents and purposes, the Bears haven't officially announced it. Am I wrong? Or has it been officially announced?
I mean, it seems pretty damn official.
He's the offensive line coach for Chicago. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I like everything about Rochar. Everything I read. I mean, multiple Pro Bowlers. His offensive lines seem to improve every year in New Orleans. So
don't forget those 3 pennies.
Those 3
Olin Kreutz.
Those 3 hundo pennies. What do we got next? Where do we want to move on to, or do we want to stay here? What do y'all want to talk about in the chat? I just want to say really quick, man, all you guys showing up today, we greatly appreciate you guys.
You guys want to hammer out some Kyler Gordon stuff?
Let's talk about the Bears extensions. Let's talk about.
Hold on, real quick, guys. You just cut off Sean when he's trying to shout out the people giving us our views and participating in this show where a bunch of dummies are just talking sports. Yeah. Sean, finish your sentence there, please.
Thank you, guys, everyone, for coming out. I want to give you guys a round of applause. We appreciate you guys on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays showing your love. Come on back every week to listen to 4 Idiots Talk Sports. Thank you.
We appreciate you greatly.
Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. No matter how intolerable we are.
And if we go into this, if we do get into this Kyler Gordon thing, which I'd really love to, because I said this a couple of weeks ago on Wednesday, Kyle, to you, we talked about it just a tad, that I think the most important
Curious.
offseason signing should be Kyler Gordon. The former second-round pick had another solid season for the Bears, 75 combined tackles, 5 pass deflections, 4 tackles for loss, 3 fumbles, and 2 quarterback hits. But it's the things he does on the field. There's nothing he can't do. And the one thing I was really surprised is he did not have an interception last year. But he did finish with a 73.2 completion percentage allowed on targets, which was a career best. The one thing that was a career worst for him.
Hold on. You just said 73.2 percentage against?
Gordon possessed a 73.2 completion percentage allowed on targets. It was a career best. But he allowed a career worst 107.1 passer rating allowed when targeted. However,
73% is really not good allowed.
It depends. In comparison to nickel, because guarding the middle of the field is the toughest position.
Correct. Here's his grades. Here's his grades last year. The 25-year-old defensive back had a 76 overall grade.
He's guarding tight ends.
Right. He finished 20th overall out of 223 qualified cornerbacks. He had a 76 flat coverage grade, which ranks 19th, and a 76.5 run defensive grade, which ranked 32nd, again, out of 223 qualifiers. There's definitely room to improve, but you also have to look at the intangibles. He can play on the line. He can get after the quarterback. He's a disruptive player. He moves really well, and he's got a very high IQ. His ceiling is going to continue to improve. Kyler Gordon is the man. He's Spider-Man, and I think the Bears should be signing this guy.
Sean, you're leaving out some important number. He was second of all cornerbacks, like Sean said, 223 in quarterback pressures. Second in the NFL.
That's where he brings the most value. For sure.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying. The intangibles, the things that he does that you don't quantify on the field, playing on the line.
He was 30th in solo tackles out of 223, but he was 4th in tackle assists last year. So 4th out of 223 corners and assisting other players in tackles. 30th overall with solo tackles out of 223. I mean, the guy's just all over the field. That's what Kyler Gordon is. He's just a utility man. He can basically do whatever the Bears ask him to do. And if they can get another corner and start to use Kyler kind of like we've seen some nickel corners in the past play kind of like a hybrid linebacker / nickel position,
or nickel / safety even. Yeah.
And isn't that what Dennis Allen said he wanted? Wasn't he like, I'm most excited about working with Kyler Gordon because he could do everything on the football field?
Listen,
so basically in that phone call that Ben Johnson made and asked him prior to Ben Johnson even accepting the job, it's been told, he said the first person he mentioned was working with Kyler Gordon and was glowing about him. And then he went ahead and pretty much was glowing about him in his introductory press conference.
Because the quality nickel is very hard to come by.
Yeah. Kyler Gordon is a supreme athlete. Yeah. And he is very sure tackler, and he is great at getting after the quarterback, like you mentioned, Kyle. The guy, if you get a smart defensive mind in here, which it looks like we have in Dennis Allen, they can unlock more than what Kyler Gordon has done already up to this point in his career. I don't know that I ever need him to be a big interception guy. And honestly, the interceptions, when they go up, the price tag goes up. Kyler Gordon could be had at a pretty reasonable deal in terms of an extension. Kyle, I don't know if you have numbers on what that, or Sean, I don't know if you have numbers on what that deal would look like, but it makes sense to extend Kyler Gordon, and it makes sense to make sure that he gets more involved in this defense as that gadget player, because you see a lot of teams in the league using that player really well, and the Bears have not been that creative up to this point. His
contract wouldn't be much different than Jalen Johnson's. It'd be a little bit less because the premier position for cornerbacks is the outside, but he would probably get about $16 million a year. I think Jalen Johnson gets 20, 21. What does Jalen Johnson? He's got 4 years, $76 million. What did Jalen Johnson get? 4 years, $76 million.
I can give you the exact one.
It's not going to be.
I had something.
It's going to be around 4 years, $60 million, I think, for Kyler Gordon.
I actually had it written down. There was a.
I'm not paying him more than $15 million a year, man. No way.
For a nickel corner, no.
4 years, $76 million, $20 million signing bonus, $51.5 million is guaranteed. Average annual salary of $19 million. I'm going like if I can get Gordon 13 to 15 million, I'm good with that. But if it's any more than that, I don't know that.
I think that's what he would expect. I mean, it's not like his name is
That's
talking.
the high end for him, I think.
That's not like it's not like every time you watch football highlights on ESPN, they're like Gordon. He's not Sauce Gardner. I think Kyler Gordon himself would expect 13, 14 million dollars per year, which is exactly what the Bears should give him if he asks for it. I think the Bears, if like you said, Dustin, the fact that this coaching staff, we've seen so many players that have been better elsewhere or worse here under Matt Eberflus. I think Dennis Allen could untap some real potential with Kyler Gordon. I think
there is
he's one of the
potential.
Best players in the NFL. And Sean, Dennis Allen compared him to a guy on the Saints. Sean, do you remember his name?
Oh fuck, who was it?
Was it Tyrann Mathieu?
It was the guy who had the guy who had the most sacks for a corner or a nickel.
Yeah, it wasn't a guy's name that jumps off the sheet, but it was a guy that Dennis Allen turned into a stud under his tutelage.
He did everything
I can't remember his name.
Tackles for loss, he was at the top. He was at the top for quarterback pressures. He was at the top for sacks. He was at the top he had the lowest amount of missed tackles of any corner. Like the guy that he was comparing him to has become an absolute stud in the NFL, and that's where he's trying to get him.
I think we're all for re-signing Kyler Gordon unless we trade him for Myles Garrett.
What do you guys where do you guys stand on Jaquan Brisker? Because they were drafted in the same draft. They're both due for contract.
Sean has some stuff on Brisker that I would like.
Real quick, guys. Trey, the Washington Huskies play mainly zone. They do play a little man. They use both, but mostly zone.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that article really quick. They're saying players. So you guys are right in the ballpark. They're saying two players that signed contracts that would be close to him. 3 years, $30 million for Taron Johnson, $16.6 million guaranteed, fully guaranteed.
But Sean, you have to imagine this goes up every year, right? Like they always.
It goes up. Yeah, this was he just signed. Taron Johnson just signed this contract last year. So,
So now you're guessing what, 13 million a year instead of
13 is on the high end to me for a guy like Kyler Gordon. He doesn't have the counting stats to really demand much over 10 to me.
It's totally up to Kyler Gordon. If Kyler Gordon says I don't think a 12 million is enough for me, then he's going to hit free agency and it's going to be bidding war. But I mean, I don't know if
it'll be
anybody's
up to
willing
the market too, because our other team willing to pay him.
If he plays the final year of his contract and waits till the end of the year, that number is going to go up again. Every year these numbers go up.
Depending on his performance. That's expected.
No, I'm just talking about like this. I'm talking about like the average pay for nickel is going to go up every single year.
But again, that doesn't mean that he'll get paid at that level if he doesn't perform to that level too. So I mean, there's multiple factors in regards to that.
Well, I hope he does.
Yeah, for sure you do, but hopefully you get ahead of paying him, and then he performs at that level. That's always the best. Jaquan Brisker, is he a guy that's in our future, Sean? I mean,
Brisker's. I don't know if the hits are getting to him, and 32. That wasn't it. This was it. Yeah, this is the hit that ended his season. We all remember this very, very well, and it does seem as though he came out today with some really weird cryptic texts. This was from 2 days ago. He says he's already been cleared and been cleared for a while. Brisker is Brisker. Time to talk about something else now. Thank you. Then Brisker went on.
When the athletes go to the third person. That's always encouraging when the athletes go to the third person.
Well, today he went, and this was posted today, and it's a little blurry, but these were all posted by him, and then he went to all of his social media and removed the Bears from his social media. The odd thing was he did leave his picture up in the Bears uniform, but he took everything down. So I don't know exactly what the riffs are. It says the weirdest things are there's the weirdest things be going on. And the other one says some shit really be hilarious. I can't even believe it. And the one at the top says, when you look outside the box, all you can do is laugh. Certainly I can't see it because this thing's blocking it. It's something funny in our world. But it was weird. And then all of a sudden he took the Bears off all of his social media, and Dustin had a theory that maybe it has something to do with medical messing with them or something. I don't know.
The medical staff and him not seeing eye to eye for the Chicago Bears, that's what it feels like to me in terms of like if he's saying I've been cleared, but he's not been playing, then he feels like maybe he's being held back. I don't know. I'm just speculating, man. but
you
it's
guys,
This comes up.
I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but the Bears
not looking good.
Somebody just
There it
posted.
is.
Somebody just posted in the comments here a little while ago that the Bears just fired the whole training staff. I'm assuming the medical staff's not far behind. Obviously, Ben Johnson wants to build a whole new staff.
That was
I mean-
breaking news. Bruce who put that out there.
Yeah, Bruce
Now-
just said
now
they
here's
fired
the
the
thing,
strength
though.
conditioning staff, so the rest of them are going to go with him.
Here's the thing, though. Do we trust Brisker? I mean, I love Brisker. I think he's a great player.
No,
But do we trust him?
Do you guys think
Can
there's
we?
a chance? Do you think there's a chance he shut down his Instagram because I think he's hearing a lot of this stuff? Like Brisker shouldn't be
He
signing
he's talking about
extended.
us.
didn't, Kyle. He didn't shut it down. He just took the Bears off of all of his social
I know,
media.
but maybe he took it so like every time somebody comments on maybe it's because he like had hashtag the Bears. So every time somebody commented on Brisker or the Bears, he was getting notifications like "You suck, you're hurt all the time, you're not going to be extended."
Yeah,
maybe he
maybe.
just got sick of that shit. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him.
I mean, but there's real concern about Brisker's ability
Oh, yeah.
to play going forward. The way he plays, the amount of concussions that he's had, the potential concussions in the future, Brandon. I mean, I'd be looking at getting another strong safety on this team because Elijah Hicks ain't it to me. Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you absolutely need to at least add depth at the safety position. I don't know if Jonathan Owens is still under a contract. You're not going to get.
He's got a 2-year deal, yeah.
We're not. You're not using a high pick on like a Malachi Starks or anything. So this is going to be a budget signing. And then I don't know how pleased the Bears are. This new regime is with Byard. I don't know that either of the Bears safeties are set in stone before this season begins.
No, that was really weird when I saw that
The Byard thing makes no sense.
Dude.
The Byard thing makes no sense. If you're cutting him, you got to replace him with somebody better. Byard was actually pretty good last year. Defensive. He was one of the standouts of this.
He was one of the best Bears. I was going to say
And
he
he's
was
a
one of the only
veteran.
consistent players.
Hey, Brandon,
Presence in the locker room. You better have somebody up your sleeve that's better than him if you're going to be moving on.
Brandon, what if you
Brandon,
could trade
you
back
brought
at
up-
the end of the first round for Starks?
I was just going to say that Brandon brought up a name of a player I'm very intrigued in this draft is Malachi
He's
Starks.
climbing.
What if he falls to 10? Would you be pissed if the Bears took him at 10, even with the other needs that are needed on this team? I mean, they're literally calling him a generational talent.
Matt Miller has
Hell of a player.
Malachi Starks going number 34, second round to the New York Giants.
Really?
He's in that
I
range.
would-
If you could trade your third to move up into the
I would hop
beginning of
all
the
over
second
Malachi
round,
Starks in the second round. I don't know if I'd spend the 10th overall pick on him. I do think that he's ranked somewhere in the bottom of the first, but if he falls to you in the second, it's a no-brainer to me. I think
Well, in that scenario, he's not falling to you. You'd have to move up to get him still in that second round. But if he enters into the second round, you could be making a move the day of the day to part of the draft to get up there and get him.
second day, and they're like, "Oh, best players available," and Starks is still on that list, and you're right.
Yeah, you should be moving up to
It's
33.
just like, hey, we're going to take 4 seconds, and we'll take
I
your
do think-
30 or 35th pick, and we're going to draft him. Like, I'd be
I do
fine with
think-
that. I'd be
I
completely
do
fine
think,
with that.
like you're starting to watch Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter kind of fill out their shoes, right? These guys are starting to come into their own. I do think Starks struggles early, but I believe that he's going to be a quality safety in the NFL. If he's there in the second round, I'm not passing him.
Really quick,
his
really
summary
quick.
says he's NFL ready.
You need
Yeah,
insurance.
Yeah, Georgia.
100%.
George is
Here,
making
this-
these guys ready. George is preparing these guys for the NFL.
They're
Hey.
comparing him to Ed Reed, man.
This
That's-
came from
that's huge.
NFL Draft Buzz. It says Malachi Starks is reportedly thought to be the best DB to come out of Georgia since Champ Bailey in 1999. Several scouts reportedly believe
What
that
up, Phil?
Starks will be the first safety since Jamal Adams in 2017 to be drafted in the top 10 of the NFL draft. Some scouts and execs believe Starks to be even a better defensive prospect than other Georgia greats such as Thomas Davis and Roquan Smith. Starks clamped down in his career some of the best receivers, holding them under 50 yards. Malik
Absolutely.
Neighbors, Luther Borden III, Isaiah Bond, Jalen Hyatt, Quentin Johnson, and Marvin Harrison Jr. This Bulldog is just built different. So,
So there's
Let's
a big
do high
range of where he could go. That's top 10 to second round. So that's a big range there. But
Yeah.
I mean, we're just throwing this out hypothetically. Obviously, at the end of the day, the thing that we all need to really agree on is that the Bears need another option at strong safety because Jaquan Brisker, whether it's mentally or physically, does not appear like he can be counted on. As much as I love the guy, does not appear that he can be counted on to be your starting strong safety for the entire season next year. If he comes in with the right head and everything's good with the Bears, he's still going to take that head and smash it against someone else's head, end up with a concussion. So you have to get insurance for that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You got to do something. You can't just rely on him being. I'm not a big fan of Hicks. No disrespect to the guy at all.
No,
I mean, he was a 7th round pick. I mean, I don't think the Bears should have expected him to come in and be like a high caliber starting safety in the NFL, but Dustin's 100% right. You have to have an insurance plan for sure. I mean, this guy, it's 4 concussions since college now. It's not like this is a flash in the pan. This is becoming a pattern. This guy knocks himself out.
Yeah.
He plays hard, man. He brings it all and leaves it all on the field, and you got to respect that. But that's Mike Brown
awesome.
2.0.
It's awesome.
You got to change the way you play if that's
And what's unfortunate is like he was blossoming into what I thought was going to be one of the best safeties in the NFL. But then it's unfortunate because the Bears, this is the defense that Eberflus built, but they really like aggressive, physical DBs. And Kyler Gordon, Jalen Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, and Brisker are very aggressive players, especially at the line of scrimmage. So you're going to try to have to find somebody who's got those kind of attributes, because I thought that's what made Brisker develop year by year, was just staying aggressive and being physical. And unfortunately, that's also what the writing on the wall was for him.
Yeah, he's got a lot of intensity. He plays a violent game, man. He plays a violent style. It just stinks because, you guys, can you think of a concussion that has lasted longer than Jaquan Brisker's? I can't.
I mean, not without guys retiring. Like,
Tua was on like his 5th, and he was back in like 6 weeks.
You remember Dan Morgan with the Panthers?
Medical staff didn't care.
Chris Borland in San Francisco. These guys retired, man. They didn't continue.
Isn't that ultimately what ended Bill Romanowski's career as well?
Well, Bill Romanowski played for like 20 years, bro.
I know,
he's got CTE like a motherfucker.
Yeah, but he had
should be able to answer
damage from
there was a kid on San Francisco.
Chris Borland.
Yeah.
Chris Borland. I just met
his
the
career
linebacker
ended
that
so
playing next to
early.
Patrick Willis in that 3-4. Yeah.
And then Ryan Shazier had a neck injury, but also a few concussions that made him hang it up.
Phillips says Javon Holland would be a great free agent safety. That's the one who Sean brought up in terms of if you're moving on from Kevin Byard, if you're cutting him, I would be all for that if you're getting Javon Holland to replace him. Yeah. If you're not, though, if you don't have a guy like that in mind that you're going to be able to sign and acquire, I don't move on from Kevin Byard. I just don't, because he was too good last year to just move on without having a replacement ready, to me.
Too, as we talk about all these trades, these trade possibilities, does anybody remember the trade that these guys, I can't think of their freaking names right now, the Detroit Lions made when they acquired Jared Goff, and how that trade changed their organization around? Because that trade netted them Gibbs, Laporta, Jameson Williams, Josh Pascal, and 2 dudes that
I don't suggesting we trade Caleb Williams.
No, I'm suggesting that if we were to make a move and we were to trade, I'd hate to see our picks, because they got 3 picks. They turned those 3 picks into 6 picks and turned their franchise around, because these are franchise players.
The Rams won a Super Bowl because of that trade too. So
the Rams did win a Super Bowl. Both teams won, but at the same time, the Lions were a futile franchise that turned it all around with this particular trade.
Yeah, but if I were the Lions, I would have wanted Matthew Stafford in that game against the Commanders.
Well,
I'll tell you that.
If you have Stafford, you don't have Gibbs, you don't have Laporta, you don't have Williams, you don't have Pascal. I mean, you turn Matthew Stafford into 4 regular starters that contribute on your team. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, we're talking about Gibbs is the best running back in football now.
Sean, those picks aren't guaranteed to be those guys. You have to do the work and
you have to be smart
guys too.
Sure.
So, and what are the Bears going to do with those picks versus if you're acquiring a Myles Garrett who you know what he is? There's a strong argument to say, I know I'm going to get this amount of production from a guy at this position. That's a very important position in the NFL. And if I'm giving up picks that I would be using that could be wins or could be busts, like, it's that risk worth the reward? And you have to weigh them both. And like you said, it comes down to, are the Bears competitive enough to make a move like that? Or does that making a move like that make them competitive enough to where it merits it? It really comes down to that, to me.
Value. If you somehow talk the Browns down and say, hey, we'll give you a first, a third this year and a second next year, then 100%.
Hell yes, you do that immediately.
100%, no doubt about it. But if they want half your draft this year, they want $25 million, and they want somebody like Kyler, like another player, which I believe that the the Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen might be thinking that Kyler Gordon can be one of those hybrid guys. Like, what's that guy's name in Detroit that Ben Johnson
Brian
Branch.
That guy was drafted as what, a safety?
He's a 4th round pick too.
Yeah, he's a safety.
And he plays linebacker, safety, corner. He does everything.
He plays a lot inside.
He's a Swiss Army knife, man. He's really good at football.
Amazing.
He's the best safety in the NFL. I think.
So I mean, I guess for me, it just depends on value. Listen, guys, I'm not saying I don't want
Not
Myles
a
Garrett. I
punter.
love Myles Garrett. I think Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in football. I really, honestly believe he is. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
So
no doubt about that at all.
move
Not even a question. Not even comparable to Montez Sweat. Montez Sweat is not a first ballot Hall of Famer. But
so why would you overthink that, Kyle? Why would
it's
you
all about value.
Value.
I mean, first of all, I would want Myles Garrett. I would want
this.
Myles Garrett to agree to a 2-year extension. It'd be like, you have to stay with us for 4 years because that's when we think we can win a Super Bowl in 2027, 2028. Then we can win a Super Bowl.
Let me. I know. I'm not insinuating that you guys. I know Sean, Kyle, you were very high on Ben Johnson. Me and Dusty, we all liked Ben Johnson, but that was the guy you wanted. It's the guy the Bears went and got. Ben Johnson in his intro presser said, "We are going to win now."
Sure.
So
Well,
Ben Johnson's feeding that
right?
to Ryan Poles. He's probably also telling Ryan Poles, if you can make a trade for a guy like this, I want to win now.
That improves my chances of winning.
I want to win now.
Yes.
Go get this guy. Please go get this guy. If
Plus,
I'm Ben
again,
Johnson, I'm
all
asking
for it.
Ryan Poles
I'm all
to get
for
me
it if
that
it doesn't hamper the offensive line in any way, shape, or form. Like,
Well, the offensive line is already hampered. You need to improve it.
Yeah, if you trade for Myles Garrett, now each offensive line move you make has to be very precise and you have to nail it. There's no room for
Sean,
error.
I want to ask Sean. I want to ask you.
You can't have a weak
That's a
offensive
fair
line.
point, Kyle. That's a fair point. But
Sean,
it's
you've said
worth
a few
it.
times.
Worth it.
I love Myles Garrett. I would love if he was a Bear. That would be absolutely
Don't
amazing.
overthink it, man.
Amazing.
No, if you have the opportunity to do this, to add a guy like this to your roster, I don't think you can overthink something like that. You just do it and you figure out the rest. Because
I think the Browns think Myles Garrett sells jerseys and tickets, and it's going to be really, really tough to pry him from the Cleveland Browns.
For sure, it could not. It might not happen. We're just speculating. But I'm just, if you have the opportunity, you got to go for it. You have.
What you got, Brando?
I heard you say a few times over the course of the show, this isn't they're a few years away. They're not one player away. How do you feel about Ben Johnson's analysis that this team is built to win now?
Aunt Mass, what up?
I think the starters as a core are decent if you add a couple of pieces to your offensive line, and I think the Bears could win now, not win. I don't think they can make. I hate to say they can't make the playoffs because we just watched the Redskins do it.
It's every time.
I don't know. I think the roster isn't as far away as some people think that it is. I think with a couple of nice additions, I think the team can
Myles Garrett would be
very
a nice addition.
Sean, breaking news today. The Commanders are
MS?
not changing their name back to the Redskins. That came out on ESPN today. They are staying with the
guess
Commanders.
what? They're always going to be the Redskins. I still call Sears Tower the Sears Tower and Comiskey Park.
Yeah,
I know, I'm
this
just
is
giving you
force of habit for sure.
I'm just giving you shit.
Guys, is there anything else we want to get to before we wrap this thing up?
I want to ask you, can you deny your positional coaches' interviews?
Oh God, Brandon.
Somebody just did it.
Yeah, the Jaguars to the Buccaneers.
The Buccaneers
yes,
are
you
telling
can.
the Jaguars.
If it's a lateral move, if it's not an upward move,
Yes.
they can deny it. Yes, that happens all the time.
The Buccaneers are telling Liam Cohen, you ain't touching anybody here.
Now, if he were promoting someone, they could not stop that. But if he were trying to move them in the same position they were at with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the Jaguars, they can 100% block that.
We have just a few minutes left here. I just have to get Dustin and Brandon's opinions because obviously Sean and I will talk about this on Wednesday, but we're not going to see them before the Super Bowl. So let's hear it, guys. Super Bowl predictions. What do you? I know, Justin, you said the Chiefs, but break down the game a little bit here.
Patrick Mahomes, man. Patrick Mahomes is going to find a way to make plays when they need to be made. The Chiefs are going to find a way defensively to come up with big plays and big moments. I could see them stopping one of those tush pushes potentially in a big moment. It's going to be a hard-fought game. The Chiefs play in close games. I don't think that the Eagles are going to get blown out. I don't think that the Chiefs are going to get blown out. I think this is going to be a tight game all the way down to it. But as I've said throughout these entire playoffs, I'm not betting against the Chiefs until until they give me a reason to. That just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
I'll give you a reason.
The Chiefs will win this game 28-27.
Ooh, okay. What you got, Brando?
I like the Eagles. I think the Eagles have the best roster in the NFL, top to bottom, without question, too. I think it's actually immeasurably better than everybody else. But I think
Who picked the Bills to beat the Chiefs?
I'm going to keep saying this. I've been telling you guys this for 3 months.
Kyle did. Brandon, did you pick the Bills to beat the Chiefs?
After I'm finished, if Saquon Barkley keeps running the ball the way Saquon Barkley, listen, if a running back runs for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns against you, you're not winning the football game. I would love to see how many times that's occurred in NFL history.
Chiefs have a very good run defense too, Brando.
James
Cook had something else to say about that, but I don't see, if you can take the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands and comfortably move the chains, I don't know how this team is beatable. And their defense with Fangio is just improving every week. And Cooper DeJean, guys, at some point we're going to be calling Cooper DeJean the best secondary player in the NFL. I believe that is.
Mitchell has something to say about it, dude. That guy's better.
I thought Cooper DeJean was a top 10 player in this most recent draft.
But
he was a
Dustin, yes, I chose the Bills, and I was stupid.
I didn't want to say this on the show.
They don't address their defense. They don't care.
I don't want to say this on the show because Sean will dig in real deep here. But the last 4 first picks in the last 4 drafts for the Eagles are all starters on their team.
And they're all defensive players, aren't they?
I actually have their entire
Smith
list.
Was one of them.
Kyle, I have their entire list of their last 4 years of drafting, and you want to talk about a GM that should be in the Hall of Fame? Howie Roseman is a god at drafting.
He nails it every year. He nails
it.
He's
a god.
And, who's the Steelers guy?
I would take Howie Roseman before you could say
Omar
Khan. Yeah.
He is also not.
He's
doing
hitting
so
pretty
bad.
well too the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Listen,
here I'll tell you this really quick on the Super Bowl. And God bless all of these families that had this tragedy in Philadelphia with that medevac plane that went down. But never underestimate the power of pulling a city together and the Eagles playing for their city in the midst of this tragedy. And God bless all those families. But
how'd that work out for the Rams?
I knew you were going to say.
The LA Rams.
The Rams.
Hey, LA Chargers.
The Rams were underdogs against the Vikings, though, weren't they?
Yeah, they were.
Not the Buccaneers.
Pick them to win.
The Buccaneers. Sorry,
they were.
Here, I'll just say this.
No, it was the Vikings.
I'll say this. I agree with Brandon.
Bear down, Phil.
They have the best roster from top to bottom.
They do.
I picked
it's really unquestionable. That can't even beat the.
I'm not saying, but the Chiefs are the Chiefs.
I wasn't
2 weeks ago. I can't remember. What did I pick? I picked a low-scoring game. I'm going to say 27-24 Eagles. I can't remember what I picked.
You almost said Chiefs.
I'm not going to pick the Chiefs because I don't want them to win 3 in a row, number one.
I don't either.
I'm done with the Taylor Swift Super Bowl bullshit.
Yeah.
It just needs to end. It just needs to end.
Listen, I'm done with it too. I don't want the Chiefs to win, but I just feel like they're going to because that's what they do. And the Eagles are a better roster, but the Chiefs are going to find a way to win because that's what they do.
I agree with Bernie. I think
wasn't the score for the last one like? Go ahead, sir.
The Chiefs are better at crunch time, and so is Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the NFL when it comes to crunch time and making sure you can score on that last drive if you're down by 3 with 2 minutes to go. But I will say, if the Eagles' offensive line can somehow manhandle the Chiefs' defensive line, which the Bills did all right against, unless they call some ridiculous penalties where the Eagles are running for first downs and all of a sudden they're on 3rd and 20 because of a hold call or something like that, I don't see how you can stop the Eagle. I mean, I just don't. If they can get to the 1 yard line, they're going to score. You can't stop them. They're going to score. They're going to get the tush push, whatever. They're going to go the opposite way of Chris Jones. They're going to score because their interior offensive line are all 350-pound men. And if Saquon Barkley goes off the way he's been doing all season, over 2,000 yards rushing, I think there's a very good chance the Eagles can control the pace of this game and win the game. To me, it all comes down to what the penalties look like. And I'm not saying it's a conspiracy theory. I'm just saying whichever team hurts themselves the worst is going to lose the game. Because Justin's right. It's going to be a close game.
When they played a couple of years ago, the final was 38-35 Kansas City. Yeah, and Jesus. I will tell you this. I'll give you one name that could be the difference in this game. Mike Caliendo. That's all I'm going to say. He's
these games
Here, and then to Brandon's point, James Cook ate this team for breakfast. Saquon Barkley's a couple steps above that guy. So
these games come down to the quarterback, guys. These games come down to the play. That's what they come down to.
You run and control the clock and keep Pat Mahomes off the field.
As much as you do that, Jalen Hurts is still going to need to come through in some big moments. And
he did in that Washington game. He played a good game in that Washington game. They needed that.
He played a very good game.
I'm not
I will say this
over Mahomes in that situation.
I'll say this though, Dustin. Jalen Hurts was better than Patrick Mahomes in their first Super Bowl. He should have been MVP. He scored 4 touchdowns on his own.
Mahomes made the plays when they mattered.
I understand.
The most.
I said that. That's what I said. I think Patrick Mahomes is the best in the NFL in crunch time.
Yeah, that MVP.
He's going to score a touchdown.
Should have gone to Hurts.
You've got to keep the ball out of his hand. You've got to keep the ball out of his hand.
Let's go Bears.
That's a good way to end it, Phil. Thank you, boss.
Hey, really quick. I'm with Dustin though. If this game does have to go on the shoulders of Jalen Hurts versus Spags and calling plays, I'm gonna have to flip my pick. And
look how he dialed it up against Josh Allen, guys.
I don't
look
like
how he dialed it up against Josh Allen.
I don't like Jalen Hurts, and we can talk about he had a good game against Washington. I dare you to go look at the previous 7 games because he didn't throw for 200 yards in any of them.
And look at the complete lack of pressure Washington got on Jalen Hurts, and look at the pressure the Chiefs were able to get on Josh Allen in very key situations in that game. And tell me that's not going to make a difference.
Yeah, but the Bills' offensive line is certainly not the Eagles' offensive line. Is to me is better than the line. I think they're the best in the NFL.
This is going to be a great game, folks. It's going to be a great game.
I think it's going to be very close. Anybody could win it. I'm just going to roll with the Chiefs.
And I'll give you.
I think it's smart to roll with the Chiefs. Rolling with the Chiefs is the smart bet. It's the 100%. That is the safe.
The logical thing.
I'll give you one more.
It's the logical bet. Yeah, 100%.
Because I hate the Eagles so much, but I'll give you one more. I really want Vic Fangio to get that ring, man. I really, really do. And I'm praying for the Eagles just for him because Eagles can kiss my ass.
Vic Fangio, Sean, I'd say Saquon Barkley has earned himself.
I don't care about Saquon Barkley. Has Barkley ever been a Bear? Has Barkley ever done anything besides beat the Chicago Bears?
He's fun to watch. Do you remember him jumping over a guy backwards 3 weeks ago? And we were sitting on your couch like, oh my God, what was that?
Let's just the number one moment of this. The NFL rated that the number one play this season.
I'll tell you this, Justin Vernon, this will be the closest probably in my life that I ever watch Jalen Carter. Let's see what Jalen Carter could do.
Oh, you're going to see some interesting stuff. You're going to see him.
See what this guy, him and Jordan Davis. If him and Jordan Davis can make Patrick Mahomes uncomfortable, it's going to be a tough game for the Chiefs.
That's a really good interior offensive line for the Chiefs.
And that's something that's something that I've. Oh my God!
Come on, dude! This guy is so awesome. I love Saquon Barkley, man.
I wish I could do that in Madden, man. Jesus.
I wish I was sitting next to a Giants fan when that happened, so I could watch them cry.
I'm with you, Plank, and I'm pulling for him to get that brass ring. And you know what? If Barkley, for all intents and purposes, is a really good dude. I don't care if he wins, but if I'm picking one person of all these players and all these coaches, for me, it's Vic Fangio. I want Fangio to get that brass ring, man.
So I'm the only Chiefs. You guys are all Eagles. What's your scores? You said 27-24, Sean, Kyle?
27-24.
I'll say 31-30 Eagles.
Brandon?
Oh, I don't remember. I don't remember what I did. A low scoring game, man. Because these teams have been power offenses over the last few weeks.
You said like 10-17 last.
Yeah, you said something like 17-10, dude.
Yeah, I think I said like 21-13 or 10 or 13 or somewhere. Yeah, I think defenses dominate this football game for sure.
Man, no way, no way. Last time they played, it was 38-35.
I don't think it's going to be that. I think both defenses are substantially better than the last time. The Chiefs actually had a bottom 10 defense when they played the Eagles in that Super Bowl. I think they're both substantially better now, and I think they're going to rely heavily on running the football. And I think this game's going to go. I think this game's going to go.
I wish they could both lose. I wish they could both lose.
I'm going to take a close score, but if I was going to pick a blowout, I would take the Eagles to blow out the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That's just me.
Well, if they rush for 7,
yeah, there's no way it's a blowout, guys.
They'll have 31.
I wouldn't say that. How many times we thought it's going to be a competitive Super Bowl and it's 55-10?
Sean, but we just said one team has Patrick Mahomes, the other team is the best team in the NFL.
Sean, as of late, these Super Bowls are always
they've been close.
The last 10 years, really. The last 10 years.
Now, I will say, though, to Vernon's point, the Patriots and Rams, people were saying was like they were picking like 28-24, 31-24, and that game ended up being what, 10-3?
Now it was like 17-13 or something like that.
In which
It was
one?
awful.
In which game?
Patriots Rams.
The games that you expect
third
to
golf
be
Super Bowl.
shootouts
The Patriots
never are.
Rams was 13-3.
13-3.
The games that you
And
expect,
the last blowout was 2021 at Raymond James Stadium. The Tampa Bay Bucks beat the shit out of the Chiefs 31-9.
There you go. But that's like one out of like the last 10. They've been a lot of close ones, a lot more close.
There have been a lot of close
Remember
games.
how bad the Buccaneers beat the Raiders in the Super Bowl? Wasn't that like 58-17 or something?
Yeah, they scored 52 or 48.
They scored four defensive touchdowns.
It was 48-21.
Yeah.
They destroyed.
Here, and to your point, Dustin, the last blowout before that was 2014. The Seattle
the Broncos
Seahawks.
and the Seahawks. Yeah, the Seahawks beat the
Destroyed
brakes.
Denver.
Yeah, that game was over in the first quarter.
Yeah,
That game was over in the first quarter.
There was almost a blowout. The Falcons had it, and then they blew it.
This show was over in the first quarter. We've just been playing it out.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Aunt Mass, Phil, Liz, Plank, T, Trax.
Trey Shy was in here.
Yeah, Trey was here. Cliff's always one of our biggest supporters here.
Plank, welcome back, sir.
Scott Angel, Slick Sophistication, Breaking News Bruce, Daniel Jeffries, Mike Ross.
Daniel Jeffries was awesome. Appreciate him. All right. Appreciate everybody, guys. Hit that like button before you get out of here. Hit that subscribe.
Dog's the man. Ruiz 7. We didn't mention Ruiz 7.
Ruiz 7 was in here. Yep. Listen, we did a basketball show yesterday on this Luka Doncic trade. If y'all want to go check that out, it was pretty interesting. I thought we had a lot of fun. We got more content coming the rest of the week. Obviously, Wednesday, Thursday. Hit us up.
Really quick, guys, too. We're debuting the Northside 9 next Saturday. Pacoda's numbers just came out today. The Cubs have the 5th best odds to win the World Series per Pacoda. They have the 3rd best odds to have the 3rd best record in the National League. So we have a lot to talk about, a lot to break down, and I'm trying to arrange, which I think is going to happen, a Chicago Cubs beat writer to be on that show on, I believe it's the 16th. Is that the 16th?
Guys, this is the best part of the Cubs season before they actually start playing games.
The
15th.
Sure the 15th.
Not this.
The 15th.
They're always champions in January.
They're always great before the ball actually gets on the field.
Hold on. If the Cubs trade for Dylan Cease, if the Cubs trade or sign for Bregman, we're going to jump on here and we're going to break that down, because if those two guys end up on the Chicago Cubs, my prediction will change to the Cubs playing the Dodgers in the NLCS. Because right now we have one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. You add Dylan Cease to that rotation, and they're going to throw in Roberto Sforza. Oh, God, give it. Let's go. Come on.
Save it for Saturday, Sean. Let's get the hell out of here.
Let's go.
Let's go. Yes, let's go.
Until next week, y'all. Hold on.
Anything you want to get out there before we wrap up?
Shit. Fuck Green Bay.
All right. Yeah.
Sorry, we forgot on Wednesday.
You gotta get a more notable player than Austin Booker. You gotta get like Jalen Johnson.
For one.
This time will come.
Hey, until Wednesday, you guys gonna be back on Thursday this week?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Until
we're gonna
Wednesday,
we're gonna beat the hell out of the Super Bowl, guys.
Hell yeah.
Sure.
I'm gonna throw down some props on Wednesday as well. We're gonna do some props. We're gonna do a whole bunch of stuff, and we're gonna break down some offensive linemen in the draft. So join us on Wednesday for Barely There.
Mock draft starts soon.
We love y'all. Bear down and peace.
Bear down.